I ask that out of respect to everyone, please silence all electronic devices. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. The time is 5:30 p.m. I would like to recognize the superintendent for a series of awards and presentations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have three very exciting presentations that ultimately reflect the hard work of our system and the achievement of our students and teachers and staff. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Maddox for these presentations.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here with us tonight. We have added one special video tonight because we were able to finish up our Patriot Day video. We wanted to share it with everyone. On September 11th, our district recognized Patriot Day and 9/11 Heroes Day. While this is a solemn occasion in our nation's history that serves as a day of remembrance, reflection, and unity, it's also a day to celebrate the countless acts of kindness, compassion, and solidarity that emerged in the wake of tragedy and pay tribute to the brave first responders and honor the men and women who have served and continue to serve our nation. The SDIRC vows to never forget.
On the 22nd anniversary of September 11th, our district paused to remember the victims and the families impacted by this tragic act of terrorism on our country. Students and educators joined their communities to pay tribute to those who displayed the incredible courage and selflessness during the tragic events of that day. In honor of Patriot Day, schools held ceremonies, paused for moments of silence, wore patriotic colors in honor of those who lost their lives, and learned about the heroes who prevented more lives from being lost. Let us never forget the selflessness and sacrifice of our first responders, military personnel, and ordinary citizens who rose to the occasion when our nation needed them most. We will continue to recognize this day each year throughout our district to keep the memory of the victims alive and highlight a time when our country stood in solidarity in defense of our freedoms. In memory and honor of the victims and their families on September 11th, we will never forget.
Thank you. Next, we have our Safety and Security Spotlight, and I would like to introduce Mr. Eric Seymour, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Affairs, Advocacy, and Access, and John Teskey, our Director of Security and Emergency Operations, to present this award.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Yet again, we are always looking to put the brightest, best people in front of our children each and every day. And yet again, we found a star and a person that actually replicates the pattern that our superintendent and our board has established for our adults over our children each and every day. We want great people. This person has done a marvelous job and continues to really do things that are beyond the scope of her responsibility. She goes far and beyond to make sure that each and every child is safe. She tries to make sure that everyone is happy, and if you drop by that campus, she's going to make you laugh as well. We are so appreciative of her and the work that she does each and every day. And at this time, I'll let Mr. Teskey speak on her behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. I'd like to call Deputy David May to the podium. There's no better person to speak on behalf of this wonderful special person than him, as they have worked together for so many years. So Deputy May.
I wasn't told I was going to be speaking tonight, so this is quick. And Mr. Teskey said I got 1 minute. So I thought about it. I have 3 children that all went through the Indian River County School District, and my granddaughter is now in 1st grade in the school district. Best district, okay? Can't say anything more than that. But when my daughter was born, I lived next door to Liz. And then when my daughter started school and both of my boys started school, Liz was at the school. And for the past 10 years, I've been in school resource deputy, and I can thankfully and graciously say that I am at Indian River Academy, where my kids went and my granddaughter goes. And after 29 years, Liz makes every day worthwhile, all right? If anybody's having a bad day, Liz is there and makes you feel better. If she sees something that is security issue or conscious, she's not afraid to speak up. Hey, we need to do this. Hey, let's do this, okay? And that is what we need in every school, and Liz does it every day, and nothing could repay her or be more thankful to her for everything that she does. All right, that's it. Come here, Liz.
All right.
Different shirt tonight. I just want to say thank you, and I'm going out as your employee of the year, but each and every day I'm still going to strive to make our school the safest and the best for our students. I'm going to start my 27th year next year at IRA, and I love my school, I love my school family, and I even love Deputy May. And like he said, we're a great team, and John knows, even in the middle of the night, I'll text John if there's something going on that I think needs to be addressed safety-wise, be it at our school or another school. I just want to make sure our community and our students are safe, so thank you.
Next, we have our Casual for a Cause presentation. If you're not familiar with Casual for a Cause, once a month, our students, teachers, and staff members, in exchange for a donation to an organization in our community, they are allowed a dress down day. And last month, we did our fundraising for Habitat for Humanity, and we are proud to announce that we raised $2,529.89, with Storm Grove Middle School raising the most with $487.35. And tonight we have Mr. Trevor Loomis, President-in-Chief, and Jolene Garcia, the Development Assistant, with us. If you'd like to come to the podium, please. Thank you. We'd like to present you with this check, and if you would like to say a few words about your organization.
Well, thank you very much. It might be a little late to get this to the bank tonight, but we'll do our best. We are going to put this money to work addressing the affordable housing crisis that we're all dealing with here, the school district not the least of which, but we are repairing and building homes. We have plans to build 113 homes over the next 5 years right here in this county. But I want to thank you all for doing this program, because it teaches kids the value and importance of generosity and philanthropy at a very early age. And so it's less about the money than it is about the education that you're giving kids through this program. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Take that one to the bank.
Okay, for our next presentation, I'd like to invite Dr. Kira Shafty, Director of Academic Compliance and Equity, to the podium, please.
Good evening. Cognia, formerly Advanced Ed, nationally recognizes districts that meet rigorous standards that focus on productive learning environments, resource allocation that meets the needs of learners, and effective leadership. Earning accreditation from the Cognia Global Accreditation Commission means that the system and all of its schools are accredited, and that the school district of Indian River County is recognized across the nation as a school system that meets Cognia standards of quality and maintains a commitment to continuous improvement. System accreditation demonstrates to our community our commitment to excellence, our openness to external review and feedback, and our desire to be the best we can be on the behalf of the students we serve. Additionally, we recently were notified that our district has been selected for the Cognia Values-Driven Award of Excellence. This award is one of 3 state-level awards given by Cognia and is presented to one education organization that systematically and systemically models the following values through their daily efforts to improve outcomes for their students. They are dream big, stand for the learner, be bold and daring, drive potential, be tenacious, and build connections. Our district will be recognized at the upcoming Cognia Impact Conference Excellence in Education Award Ceremony on October 3rd. We are incredibly proud of the work that is being done by our teams at both school and district levels that yielded this commendation. At this time, I would like to introduce Andy Martinez, Cognia's Director of the Southeast Region, to present the SDIRC with system accreditation, as well as recognize 2 fantastic accomplishments by Osceola Magnet School and Storm Grove Middle School. Please welcome Mr. Martinez, Ms. Norris, and Mr. Taylor.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Andy Martinez, and I am a state director with Cognia. We have the pleasure of celebrating our 127th year this year with Cognia. Some of you may be familiar with Sachs Casey or Advanced Ed. We've been around for a while. I haven't, just dating myself. But it is our pleasure. We, especially here in the state of Florida, we are the most saturated state in terms of the number of accredited institutions in the entire world resides in Florida, with over 4,100 different schools. Now, there's only 3 directors, so we take a lot of pride in actually coming out to the school boards like yourselves and actually presenting these awards because of the work and dedication that is done by not just the students, but the staff that implements this for the students. And it starts with the high rigor that we expect from all our institutions. So before I get with the accreditation for the entire district, I'd like to show specific recognition to Osceola Magnet School, please. Also for Storm Grove Middle School. These awards, the beauty of these awards is that these schools have become leaders in the state in the realm of STEM, science, technology, education, mathematics, and they are now going to become a leader. They were asking me a little while ago, hey, can we reach out to other members? I'm like, don't worry, they'll be reaching out to you very soon. But the point is, they need to be recognized for the accomplishment. Some other accreditation bodies are almost like a checklist. We are not. We are a continuous education body, and we make sure that not only are you doing what you're supposed to do now, but you're always improving for the good of the little ones, and that's our goal. And these 2 individuals and these individual schools deserve all the recognition and praise because what they have done is quite the accomplishment. So once again, please hear it for the STEM. I do have one more. This plaque, if perhaps Dr. Moore would like to come and receive this. This is the certification for the entire county of Indian River system. It is quite the accomplishment for the entire system to be acknowledged. As I mentioned before, we've been around for 127 years. Right now, we have over 48,000 members in 95 different countries. So this is quite the accomplishment, and we are very proud to present this award to the school board of Indian River County. Please.
Dr. Moore, that concludes presentations for tonight.
Do you want to say anything, Dr. Moore?
Just how thrilled we are to go through the accreditation process and be acknowledged across all of the different systems in Florida. Some of the academic outcomes that we realized last year, there's no coincidence that we also went through our self-improvement process aligned to Cognia. And we hold ourselves accountable to how we do continuous improvement. We are one system in the state of Florida that doesn't follow the generic template that the state puts out in terms of school improvement. We created our own, aligned to our district strategic plan. It is updated 4 times a year, unlike the states, which is just updated once, to ensure that we're always looking at the data, always understanding the reality in classrooms and responding in the fastest way possible to improve the outcomes. And when you look at our outcomes, they're significantly different than other counties in Florida. That's because of our continuous improvement process. So I want to thank Dr. Shafty, CNI, the entire team, all of our principals, the 2 schools that were recognized here. They did what every other school did, but they also went through an additional process to say that they are, in fact, STEAM certified. So they are, as mentioned, leaders in the state. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. All right, this will conclude our awards and presentations for this evening. The time is 5:46. Our business meeting will begin at 6 p.m. sharp. Thank you. Today is Monday, September 25th, 2023, and I would like to call this meeting to order. The time is 6 p.m. I ask that out of respect to everyone, please silence all electronic devices. Also, if you have any material you wish to share with any board member, please give that to our executive assistant, Mrs. Morey. Please stand for the pledge led by Vero Beach High School Air Force ROTC Major Retired Dean Ragsdale.
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Board members, it's now time for the adoption of the orders of the day. Board members, are there any items you wish to move from the consent agenda to the action? Mr. Barefoot, Ms. Rosario, just want to make sure we can hear you. Any board members want to move anything from consent agenda to action? Okay. Any added items for discussion? Okay, board members, I would like to move up the African American standards. Due to the last meeting, we had about 53 speakers. We didn't get to that discussion until about 9:30 or 10, so I'd like to move that up right after citizen input. Okay, thank you. The chair now calls for a proper motion to adopt the orders of the day as amendment.
I'll make a motion as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ehrenberg with the motion, Dr. Posca with the second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Dr. Jones.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Jones, can I make a comment,
Sure.
though? I was going to pull the item, but after talking to Dr. Moore and also Ms. Becerra, sorry, we talked about the fact that the school improvement plans have been submitted for approval tonight. However, that's an ongoing flexible change. And one thing that I was bringing up as I spot checked a few of them and looked at was the fact that I'd like to see more inclusive ESE goals. And so, for example, I pulled up one school that had 32% ESE students, but I didn't really see a lot of inclusiveness. So I really would like to see those put into our SIP, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, we go on now to the superintendent's report.
Based on time, I'm going to let the Cognia presentation be a report for this evening.
All righty. Now we will have the guidelines for citizen input. I have these up here. Each statement made by a member of the public shall be limited to 3 minutes duration. I will be recognizing in the order in which the requests were made. The time shall start when the speaker is at the podium, and the public information officer will be the official timekeeper. As you will see, the time clock is visible to your left on the dais. You will hear a beep at the end of your 3 minutes. Each person may speak up to 3 minutes at the beginning of a business meeting during citizen input as indicated on the order of the business, and for up to 3 minutes to each action agenda item during the action agenda, and each board member discussion item as indicated on the order of business. If a consent item is moved to an action item when you come up to the podium, you may speak at that time or defer to speak during the presentation of the action item. People may only speak once about any given item. The time period may be extended by the presiding officer. Only the individual submitting a speaker's form is allowed to address the board. Time may not be yielded to other speakers. During the meeting, please refrain from clapping or outbursts of any sort so that we can proceed with dignity and with decorum by not infringing on anyone's individual First Amendment rights. I need to remind everyone to direct all comments to the chair, not to individual board members or the superintendent. Board members may or may not address any citizen input statements at the end of all the citizen input comments. As board members, we listen to citizens without interruption. Citizens are asked to give board members the same respect. As per Florida Statute 1001-372, the presiding officer of any district school board may order the removal from a public meeting held by the district school board of any person interfering with the expeditious or orderly process of such meeting, provided such officer has first issued a warning that continued interference with the orderly process of the meeting will result in a removal. The first warning is to everyone at this time. I will be calling you up two at a time. The first person will be called to the podium to speak, and the second person will be in line to speak. Speakers shall not engage in personal attacks or abusive language. The chair has the right to terminate any speaker's privilege to address the board if the rule is violated. If you have anything to give to the board members, superintendent, please do so through our executive assistant. It is clear that the board has taken action to comply with the law regarding instructional materials, including library books. If you are here to express your opinion regarding House Bill 1069 on materials in school libraries, we would ask that you visit staff in the lobby to initiate the challenge process. Finally, the school district supports First Amendment rights of speakers and rights outlined in House Bill 1069 regarding library materials. As such, some individuals may choose to exercise these rights, which may include reading material with language or content that is not appropriate for all audiences. Knowing this, please make a viewing decision appropriate for you and your family.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
We have to go back to item 2B, which is the Student Crime Watch resolution. Just,
I'm sorry.
you're on a roll. I didn't want to interrupt you.
So before public comment tonight, we are proud to present our Student Crime Watch resolution. I'd like to introduce Mr. John Teskey, the Director of Security and Emergency Operations.
Thank you. Good evening, Board Chair, Dr. Moore. I'd like to call two guests that were already up here earlier, Deputy David May and Liz Geoffrey from IRA. They're going to be reading our Crime Watch resolution this evening. Our Student Crime Watch resolution is putting us into compliance with the Office of Safe Schools and Senate Bill language 7026 and 7030, adopting programs to assist schools, teachers and staff, students and parents into reporting suspicious or criminal acts. We're glad to have them here as two representatives of what's going on in schools to read our resolution tonight. We appreciate the board's approval on this. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Geoffrey and Deputy May.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The School Board of Indian River, Florida, a body corporate under Florida statutes, the board, does hereby adopt the following resolution in a duly noticed public meeting. Whereas the board is the governing body of the Indian River County School District, the district, and constitutes a body corporate pursuant to section 1001.40 Florida statute. And
whereas the board desires to keep its students safe, secure, and free from harm. And whereas section 1006.07 paragraph 3 of the Florida statute requires the board to implement a student crime watch program by resolution to promote responsibility among students and improve school safety.
whereas the board provides a student crime watch program through the local See Something, Say Something campaign and Fortify Florida program, which reports information it receives through anonymous tips to the appropriate law enforcement agency and school officials. Now, therefore, be it resolved
the foregoing recitals are true and correct, and are incorporated herein by reference. The School Board of Indian River County, Florida hereby implements a student crime watch program through the See Something, Say Something campaign and Florida Fortify FL program, and local law enforcement agencies to promote safety within its schools by providing a mechanism that allows students and the community to anonymously relay information concerning unsafe and potentially harmful, dangerous, violent, or criminal activities or the threat of these activities to appropriate public safety agencies and school officials.
This resolution shall become effective immediately upon its adoption, and witness hereof of the undersigned School Board of Indian River County, Florida, adopts this resolution effective this 25th day of September 2023.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to approve it first.
Do you want to approve it?
Take a photo as soon as it's done.
Okay, board members, a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Dr. Posca,
I'll second.
second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for that. We appreciate you.
Here we go, perfect, ready? 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you.
All right. You get the podium moved? Alrighty, our first speaker is Rebecca Siplak, followed by Margaret Murray.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Siplak. I live in Vero Beach. I'm a small business owner, and I volunteer with the Gifford Middle School Garden Club during the school year. I want to thank the board, and especially Dr. Peggy Jones, for this time. I'm here to speak because I'm concerned and dismayed by the recent changes to the history education standards for grades K through 12, specifically Standard 68 AA 2.3. I attended public grade school in Northeast Pennsylvania, graduating high school in 1991. My school and the town I lived in were predominantly white. I went to school with very few people of color. During my first quarter of college, I took an African American studies class and was embarrassed about just how little I knew of the Black experience in the U.S. I remember going home for the holidays and having a heated discussion with my father, who was on the school board for 9 years while I was a student. How could he not have seen how little our grade school education was teaching us about the Black experience in this country? Since being exposed to this knowledge in college, I've made it my personal desire to continue my education by learning as much as I can about the experiences and realities of living as a non-white person in this country. I just started reading this book, The 1619 Project, and would like to read an excerpt from the preface. We are committing educational malpractice, says Hassan Kwame Jeffries, a historian at Ohio State University, who served as chair on the advisory board that produced the Southern Poverty Law Center's Teaching Hard History report. Our preference for nostalgia and for a history that never happened is not without consequence. Although we teach students that slavery happened, in some cases we minimize slavery's significance so much that we render its impact on people and on the nation inconsequential. This is profoundly troubling because it leaves Americans ill-equipped to understand racial inequality today, and that in turn leads to intolerance, opposition to efforts to address racial injustice, and the enacting of laws and policies detrimental to Black communities and America writ large. Our narrow understanding of the institution of slavery prevents us from seeing this long legacy and leads policymakers to try to fix people instead of addressing the historically rooted causes of their problems. In other words, we all suffer for the poor history we've been taught. In closing, I want to be on the record as someone who stood up and spoke out against continuing to whitewash U.S. history in public schools. I believe the backlash that we are experiencing today from groups and people whom I will not give the pleasure of naming is a direct result of white supremacy rearing its ugly head in a last gasp before this country can birth and grow into, as Valerie Carr would say, a society
Thank you.
awakened to the truth of interdependence.
Thank you, Margaret Murray. And then we have Jacqueline Jacobs.
My name is Margaret Murray. I was born, raised, and spent my life in Florida. I spent 45 years in corporate America and was a small business owner. My area of expertise is human resources and executive recruiting within all 67 counties of Florida. I've interviewed and hired thousands of people. I know what leaders look like, and Peggy Jones is a leader. Jones has character, credibility, and conviction. Her poise, grace, and professionalism stand out to me. A former teacher and dean and principal with 50 years of experience is what we call in my business a seasoned pro. And to have that experience and wisdom here in Indian River County, we're very fortunate. And I thank you for your service and your leadership. The August meeting was a shameful performance from the Moms for Liberty and their group, especially the out-of-town troublemaker. It was radical, reckless, ridiculous, but also a coordinated act which was not an accident. The mom's strategy is to disrupt, distract, and dismantle. The tricks are preventing the good work of this board, and the board members that are condoning these tactics, shame on you. Voters like me will not forget in the ballot box. We don't need this type of antics in our meetings. We need a normal, productive, and results-driven school board focused on real issues and real solutions. I want to talk about a leader, a true leader. It's produced by the public school system here in Florida, where both of her parents are public school teachers. Our 104th Associate Justice for the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, graduated from Miami Palmetto High School, Harvard, and Harvard Law School. She recently spoke and she said, if we're going to move forward as a nation, we can't allow concerns about discomfort to displace knowledge, truth, and history. It is certainly true that parts of this country's story and history can be hard, but it is dangerous to forget, because the uncomfortable lessons are often the ones that teach us the most. We can't forget because we can't learn from the past mistakes we do not know exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Jacobs. Ladies and gentlemen, nope. Jacqueline Jacobs, and then Angela Bowling.
Good evening, Dr. Jones, members of the board, and Dr. Moore. Thank you for the work to earn the accreditation through Cognia. It is who we have always been. I am a retired principal of this district and proud of it. Each of you as board members is here to approve policy and budget so the professional staff can do the work of the entire system of our schools. I want to speak to the standards that you have written as your code of conduct. The first standard states board members have a sincere desire to serve the educational needs of the community. Decisions must be based on the best interests of students and not political or personal interests. The first ethical principle in your own code states, board members value the worth and dignity of every person, the pursuit of truth, devotion to excellence, acquisition of knowledge, and nurture democratic citizenship. Essential to the achievement of these standards are the freedom to learn and to teach, and the guarantee of equal opportunity for all. We need all of you to follow this principle, even if you don't believe it. When you support on social media the actions of an outside agitator, and when you continually appear to be unprepared for and or absent from board meetings, your actions suggest you do not value the principle. Many people new to Florida are shocked to learn that board members in Florida are paid. You receive over $37,000 a year as board members and can also receive insurance benefits, and still you miss meetings. We need a board that is focused on the education of each and every student in Indian River County, whether their parents choose to raise them with your values or not. You sit on the board of the public schools and should be here to improve them, not put teachers and staff in fear. This is our community, and there are far more who do not support the tactics and the divisiveness that has been occurring in the public comment of this district. Our children and young people need leadership that is focused on the development of each and every student's knowledge, skills, and humanity to be healthy, contributing members of our society. Your behaviors are watched by them. Please do what you are charged to do. And if you cannot, perhaps you could have the personal integrity to step down. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Bowling, and then Cindy Gibbs. Shh.
I think it might be a good idea to move the citizen input portion of the school board meetings to the end of the meeting after the board's been able to conduct the important business of our district. If we citizens have anything that's important to say, we can stay until the end. If that would limit the number of retirees, speaking about books that haven't been even checked out of our public school libraries in at least the last 2 years, then so be it. Because it was a waste of the board's time to have to hear book excerpts from 20 books last month that haven't even been checked out in 2 years, probably more. Another option would be to not televise the citizen input to discourage the speakers who come solely for the publicity and not for the good of our students. Would it be possible to not allow any personal recording of the meeting? That's a routine requirement in other theatrical productions, which is what it seems like our citizen input is becoming. I realized, well, no, never mind that. Okay, so another thing is that Florida lawmakers expanded eligibility for the school vouchers this year, and they gave parents expanded ways to be able to spend the money. Theme park passes, 55-inch TVs, and stand-up paddleboards are actually on the list of approved items that recipients of the vouchers can buy to use at home if they're homeschooling their children or if they have any money left over after they pay tuition at private schools. The items are actually appear on a list of authorized expenses in a 13-page purchasing guide that was published this summer by the organization that manages the bulk of the Florida vouchers. And I'm just wondering if any of our school district leaders who homeschool their children would like to voluntarily report on whether they're going to be using state tax dollars to take advantage of the vouchers. It seems to me that 40% of our current board members do not believe in using our public school system, but that might be an issue that has to be addressed by the voters of the county. Another area is we need to recognize that we are a diverse school community. That's a beautiful thing. It means that one group can't dictate and force everyone else to act like and to believe and to live like that group does. When we don't allow certain things to be mentioned in school, when we make it against the rules to bring up certain topics, it's like we don't see the people who those topics refer to. And when we don't see people over time and in larger quantities, the being unseen can lead to being unprotected, which can lead to violence against people, as we have actually witnessed repeatedly this year in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Gibbs, and then we have Logan Giesland.
Good evening. We keep hearing, why don't teachers come to school board meetings? Why don't teachers speak up? Well, we're also hearing that teachers are somehow teaching kids how to be gay, or that history is somehow making kids feel bad about whatever race or races they are. We even have some school board members who support publicly these claims. So let me remind everyone that the majority of our teachers are on annual contracts. It didn't used to be that way, but now it's pretty easy to get rid of teachers with any parent's word against theirs. So since it's challenging for teachers to come here to speak about how things are in our schools, some of us ask them so that we can be their voices. Here is a short selection of the concerns we heard. These are quotes. The district opted to remove an entire Amplify unit that students love, an excerpt of A Midsummer Night's Dream, because it contained inappropriate content. It's Shakespeare. We are no longer allowed to use relationship-building nicknames, such as Buddy or Champ, and can only use students' birth certificate names unless a parent gives permission for Jessica to be called Jessie, or Thomas to be called TJ. What is the purpose of this other than to make it harder for us, the teachers, to have a decent classroom relationship with our students? People in the biz will know this topic. RTI is a joke because we can only use grade level materials regardless of whether the student is reading on that grade level or not. Here are my former teacher words about that. How is that even a thing? How could anyone teach a second grade kid who comprehends at a kindergarten level with second grade materials? Real teachers know that this is ridiculous, but they also know it's a reality. Continuing with our list, you can't teach Amplify without slides, but the district didn't purchase the Amplify slides, so what do we do? And it takes hours to create these lesson slides, and nowadays teachers are terrified to create their own PowerPoint lessons because we might accidentally do something wrong. We have no real consequences to give students who misbehave, so they have no reason to change their behavior. And we're no longer allowed to build relationships with them, so why should they trust us to teach them? It's not worth having a classroom library, even if someone has helped to vet it, because someone is going to find something to be offended about. We can't have kids bring library books from outside the school either, because their parents might not know they checked them out. And we don't have time to contact every parent to make sure they gave permission for their kid to have a county library book that might not be age appropriate in our room. Every word of this is true. Every bit of this, all of this nonsense was planned by the local hate group to cause discord rather than partnership between teachers and parents. It is wrong, and we need to stop giving in to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Logan Geeslin and Angie Jawar.
Good evening. My name is Logan Geeslin. I was born and publicly educated in Vero Beach, Florida. When I was 10 years old, 1956, I decided to read Ernest Hemingway's For Whom the Bell Tolls. This caused controversy in my family, but my mom said I could read anything I wanted. She never considered going to the school or public library and telling them I couldn't check out a book. I am the third generation of college graduates in my family. Anyone who's afraid of books and thinks they are dangerous is not a reader. The only person I know involved for Moms for Liberty self-admits she doesn't read books. Very easy for these people to attack books. They and their children are not inconvenienced. And what cowards these people are to anonymously threaten the lives of school board members. Instead of swatting at flies, these parents concerned about their children's exposure to the brutality of life should go after internet and TV content. The 5 p.m. local news is graphic about man's inhumanity to man, to say nothing about video games where the body counts and some of the ladies are amazing. And even adults know a 10-year-old intuitively manages the computer and can find anything on the internet. It's amazing. I thought of Savonarola and his Bonfire of the Vanities, the Spanish Inquisition, and Hitler as examples of infamous book burners. for whom things did not end well, and those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. Banning books in our school library is now a moot issue. It is unimaginable to me a Cuban American graduate of Harvard and Yale supports book banning. The Indian River County School Board wants to make our schools #1 in Florida. And I feel that all the citizens of the county should join with our teachers and the board to make our schools the best in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie Johar, and then we have Heather Askin.
My phone might die, so who knows. So good evening, my name is Angie Johar. I'm an alumni of Sebastian River High School, class of 2001. I have 2 children in our district. One is in elementary school and one is a nonverbal ESC student at Gifford Middle this year. Quick story, I changed this up a little bit. There was a little Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx that moved here the last month of 3rd grade. She gets introduced to the class after a brief intro, goes to sit down, and the little girl across from her said, "My daddy told me that Spics don't belong here and Yankees need to go back to where they came from." This was in 1992. That little girl is still in this very county raising her kids in this very school district. And I hope when Ashley sees me here right now as this very proud Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx, that she feels ashamed and that she feels or is teaching her kids to be better. Because unfortunately, racism does exist in this very district and within our school board. I'm just saying. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Jones for her dedication and her leadership here in our community. Also, while she was our principal, she always made sure to remind students that they could be their true selves and to always strive for the highest in every aspect of life. Thank you for continuing to be an amazing leader. I also want to remind people that this is public school. If you want religion, if you want political things to be intertwined in this school district, then maybe you should be going onto the board of a private or religious school district, not on a public school district. Because we have kids, we have teachers, we have staff, we have admin of all different races, religions, sexual orientation, and if you're not okay and don't support people 100%, then you're at the wrong position, and you're here for the wrong reasons. Bottom line. And maybe you should just quit while you're trying to be ahead.
Thank you, Heather Askin, and then Kevin Askin.
Good evening. My name is Heather Askin, and I'm a parent of an Indian River County School District student and a former teacher. I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for you, Dr. Jones, and your like-minded colleagues for dedicating your time, energy, passion to our community and its children. Thank you for all that you do, and you have my support. I'm also appreciative of the fact that I have the liberty to speak with you this evening. Liberty is defined in the Oxford Dictionary, in a state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. I would like to thank the school board for giving parents the true liberty to choose which books our children can or cannot read in our school library by giving all parents and guardians a form to fill out at the beginning of the year and following up with reminders to fill it out in case it's been overlooked. It's wonderful that we're being respected and given the choice to individualize our children's options under these tense circumstances. I understand that in addition to managing 27 schools, approximately 17,000 plus students and over 1,100 teachers overseeing our curriculum and budgets, you're under extreme pressures now to govern the selection of books in the library. My husband and I truly appreciate you taking into consideration the liberty of all families, not just the loud and aggressive ones, and providing us true parental choice. In closing, I'd like to thank all our teachers, aides, support staff, school psychologists, counselors, bus drivers, volunteers, administrators, and our beloved librarians for the care that they take in educating my child and our community's children. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Askin, and then Joanne Binford.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am Kevin Askin and currently have one child in the Indian River school system. I've had the pleasure to serve 28 years of my life in both the active duty and the reserve as a naval officer. Over that time, I have taken several oaths of office every time I got promoted to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, an oath I have taken seriously, an oath that does not end with my retirement. This is why I feel compelled to speak with you today. Through both my military and airline careers, I've had the privilege to travel around many countries across our world. Many of these countries do not enjoy the same freedoms that we do in this country. Freedoms that can be taken for granted. Among these freedoms that much of the world does not share is the freedom of speech. It is hard to really imagine not being able to speak and express ourselves freely without the fear of punishment. Yet this basic freedom is rare in our world. We can never let this freedom be taken for granted. And we can never let this freedom be taken from us. As a service member and a veteran of foreign conflicts, I've not only fought for national sovereignty, I've also fought for individual rights to peaceably protest, burn a flag, marry who we want, read what we want, engage and exchange in differing ideas and express our own individuality. Freedom is not about limiting others, but encouraging limitless potential. So in the spirit of Freedom Week, I ask the board not to let a few people who are hiding under the banner of liberty through their targeted agenda to ban books that they don't like and keep them from our ability to have our own parental choice. If these people choose to read from published literature here in hopes to have them banned, I say let them read it. And then let all parents, through utilizing the processes that are already in place, decide for themselves. That is true liberty. I also ask the board to help foster an educational environment where critical thinking flourishes, where students and teachers can speak freely about our country, about our world, and the many points of view that makes up its entirety. Limiting speech in the classroom, banning books, and dictating how our history can be taught is more reminiscent of 1940s Germany and current-day Russia than the United States of America. True freedom does not ban, limit, or mute based on fears of some. True freedom is truly fearless. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Binford and Benny Ryant.
Thank you, everybody. I would like to start by thanking Jean Posca for taking a moment to advocate, to educate truth to a parent comparing the Holy Bible to a book that had pornographic material in it. This is not about book banning, and I'm glad that you guys took all the books off. That's good. We really don't want our kids reading about sex and how to have sex and fondling and all that stuff. We're not going to get into it now, but that's not book banning. We are the guardians of children. And yes, we do have liberty in this country, and we have a diverse group of people. I worked for the school district for 16 years, from pre-K to high school. I've had all age groups, and I've seen all kinds of things in our school district. My favorite time was before we had this superintendent at the school district. Our school district was happy. It had its problems. We had kids. Hey, I worked in discipline, guys. I saw the cases. We had to pull a kid and have their parent come in because they were swapping potato chips for a feel. That was before the books were on. We had another kid having sex in the men's room, in the boys' room. We still had those incidents happening in school. We do not need those books. So stop calling people book banners. We love our kids. We want them to be educated. Critical thinking comes with mastering your math, mastering your reading, mastering your science, mastering the education. And it's not race, you are never going to get rid of racist people. Why? Because we are individual people. Some people are just prejudiced because they don't like the color of your hair. You cannot change that. We are not systemically racist. We are all different human beings. But most importantly, school, the teachers, I know a lot of teachers. I was here for 16 years. And I know that the teachers work hard, and they don't want to have to be mental health counselors. They want to focus on education and being creative and teaching the kids. This is not about the teachers doing a bad job. This was about getting the books off the library floor that kids don't need to be reading. We've already had sexual activity in this school district over the years. We've already had cases. We don't need to encourage that behavior. And, I just want to let you guys know, I also wanted to talk about the CSAC committee because our superintendent is on the CSAC committee. And we have had Learning Alliance, Moonshot Moments, Education Foundation for decades working with our kids, K through 3. But guess what? They are still making it to the middle school below grade level.
All right, thank you. Next speaker is Benny Ryant. Thank you. After Benny Ryant, we will have Mary Brew.
I'll be short here tonight. I come to speak in reference to studies for African American history. I'm a person who is a proponent of the truth. Let the truth be told. And when it comes to African American history, I would like to see the truth presented in an unbiased, unfiltered way that our students can receive and with their own intelligence determine what is the right action. I make a reference here to a book that was written by Carter G. Woodson called The Negro in Our History. And he says in the preface, the purpose in writing this book was to present to the average reader in succinct form the history of the United States as it has been influenced by the presence of the Negro in this country. The aim here is to supply also the needs of schools long since desiring such a work in handy form with adequate references for those stimulated to more advanced studies. I've been informed that this book actually been banned. And it's one thing that I would like to say, and Jesus is my hero. And he says, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Let our children hear the truth. I close with a statement by Dr. Martin Luther King that says, truth pressed to earth will rise again. No lie can live forever.
Thank you. Mary Rue, and then Mary Ann Bender.
Good evening. My name is Mary Rue. Father, in the name of Jesus, Lord, we come before you this afternoon saying thank you, God. Thank you, God, for being the God that you are. Lord, I thank you, Father, for what you are doing in this room right now. Father, I thank you, God, for being the loving God that you are, and God bless us to be the same, what you made us to be. Father, bless us, bless the teachers and everyone that is control of our children. Bless them, God, that they will be able to learn what they're supposed to learn, God, and to love each other. Father, we thank you, God, so much. I am not the only biracial grandmother or great-grandmother in this room. I ask you, God, to bring us together to teach our children not to love and not to hate in the name of Jesus. And Father, I ask you, God, the one that's on this board that is trying to help and do what it is necessary to do, bless them in a mighty way. The ones that is not, bless them too. And let them know that they are not in charge. You are in charge, Father, in the name of Jesus. And God, we say thank you today. We say thank you, God, for bringing us all together and to hear what each other have to say. Thank you, Lord Jesus. Father, I ask these and many blessings in your mighty Son, Jesus' name. I ask every person in this room to hear my voice say amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you, Mary Ann Bender, and then Christy Bell.
Good evening, Board. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak again, and I wrote a speech and went over it, and I've decided to go off the cuff a little bit. I brought my daughter, who's 14, and her best friend to last meeting. We got here late, so we were the last to sign up. So we were the last to speak. So they saw, heard, all the things. And, you know, we went through it in stride, and besides the book thing, but hearing someone stand up and say that we have to admit that slavery was beneficial was awful. And then to leave with my daughter and her best friend, who's an African-American student, and be asked in the parking lot, how would you feel in the classroom? And she said, I would feel not supported, and I wouldn't want to come to school. That's just not okay. Every student, black, white, gay, trans, I don't care. They should come to school and feel supported by their teachers, by their friends. You can't control the peer group, I get that. But then to hear those words from your teacher, that just really struck me at my core, that you would send a student to school and them feel that way. That's not okay. So I asked at the last meeting, and I ask today, to anybody that will listen to you, all of you board members, anybody, everybody in this room, do what you can, email, write, call, to say we're not okay with this, because no student should have to go to school and feel not supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy Bell, and then Mink Tyner.
Hi. I came tonight to speak about two things. The first is the African American Studies curriculum, and I just wanted to reiterate what I said last month. I feel strongly that it's imperative students learn from our history in order to avoid the negative things happening again. Obviously, slavery should be taught in a way that's appropriate for different age students. The horrors were so bad that it wouldn't be appropriate to teach the smallest children the physical tortures that the enslaved endured. That, however, doesn't mean it should be put in a way that makes it seem that enslaving human beings is ever a good thing. So I would ask the board collectively to continue talking with the DOE and anybody else about this matter to try to work to get that changed. Children should be learning that treating all people humanely and with civility is important in order for our society to thrive. One of the predominant ways that children learn how to treat others with respect and act civilly is by seeing that behavior modeled. It's more than just the books they read or the curriculum they engage with. In that vein, I would like to remind the board through the chair that school board members are elected officials and therefore servant leaders. I think that our elected officials are not only a reflection of the communities that they serve, but they impact the behaviors of those they serve through their own role modeling. I would like to ask the board to consider revising and adding to their code of conduct rules. I saw multiple tweets that are derogatory toward many in our community posted by a local board member. I have seen Democrats compared to the Klan. I have seen a satirical comment that would easily be misconstrued recommending opposing words should be equated to and met with violence. I saw individual community members and business leaders, people who have children in this district, derogatorily called Satanists and child traffickers. I have seen the false accusation that a specific named local nonprofit leader wants porn in our schools. A good Bible reading person who has children in this district being accused of trying to tear down the Bible. These types of comments push buttons and can incite vile behavior. At a minimum, none of that seems like the way an elected local board member should behave toward parents and community members in our district. Some of you have received death threats. The violent rhetoric stems from somewhere. I'm not saying it's from any of you at all. But perhaps your standards could help reduce the anger and disrespectful manner that's growing within a small segment of our community. Language I would ask you to consider that is used in other districts would include language similar to, will model civility to students, employees, and all elements of this community. Language that might say, I would be fair, just, and impartial in my decisions and actions. I will accord others the respect I wish for myself, and all those kinds of things.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mink Tyner, and then we have Delana Hilbert.
Good evening. So first, myself and other parents, and if there are any other parents that were here and present the night of the 28th, we are going to be seeking for a full investigation under Article 847, as there were children present, and we are expecting a full investigation of the list of people that chose to get up here and disseminate obscene material to the minors. So we will be talking to an officer, hopefully. Okay, thank you. Additionally, Jackie Rosario, I have a question.
Yep.
On Monday, August 28th.
No personal. Don't go there, just facts as far as not going personal, you go through the chair.
Okay, all right. So on Monday, August 28th of 2023 at 6:30 a.m., Jackie received a email notification that your 2022 Form 6 full and public disclosure of financial interest due on 7/03/2023 has not been received by the Florida Commission on Ethics. Persons serving as of December 31st, 2022, and persons elected in 2022 are required to file this year. Failure to timely file may result in fines, removal from public office or employment, or an ethics complaint. Do not delay, file your disclosure. You were given a deadline of 9/01/2023. I'm definitely going to be looking in to see if that was filed, and I would expect that it was, especially given some past troubles that we've had regarding along those lines and your disqualifications for future employment here in the district. I would also like to take this opportunity and this time to kind of encourage you to distance yourself from hate groups and activity encouragement.
Through the chair, through the chair, to
got
me.
you, got you. So, now, there's also, we need to make necessary actions to get rid of any affiliation, support, and encouragement of any hate groups that goes by board members and such as groups like Moms for Liberty. Posca, you definitely made some highly...
Mink, through the chair, or I'm going to cut you off, to me.
Okay, so, madam, members of the board made some highly inappropriate behavior and depictions of parents and constituents of Indian River County schools. So, he basically claimed that I was on an outburst. He was reveling in the wave that Mr. Reverend Amunchku, or I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, had created here, making a mockery out of our local system. You're a doctor of medicine, you're a molecular biologist, that you believe in unmasking, which I support that, right? But you don't believe in LGBTQ or body dysmorphia, anything of that, so much so that you support an anti-gay Twitter evangelist. Or I'm sorry, he does. He likes guns, I do too. I really am. I was actually born and raised in a gun shop by a Marine that is a baddest man alive on Google with an M203 grenade launcher. And it does concern me when stuff like that is paired with
All right, thank you very
threats.
much. Thank you. Next speaker is Delina Hilbert.
But I want to know
No,
why
that's
you
it. You're
sexualize
done.
me.
Sit down, please. Thank you. You're done. Sit down and thank you very much. Go on. Delina Hilbert. And then we have Angela Love. Are you ready, hon?
Yes. Give
Thank
me
you.
1 second. Not gonna lie, when I came up here, I was scared I wouldn't reach the podium. Good evening, school board members. My name is Delina Hilbert, and I am a fellow student at a middle school in the Indian River District. For a long time, I have been interested in journalism and law, and this would be the 5th meeting I've attended. I'm a lacrosse player as well as a part of the yearbook club at the school I attend, and I have signed up for student government as well as becoming one of the first junior members of the NAACP. My family and I do lots of volunteering through various local organizations, and my family has also attended Indian River schools for many generations. I'm concerned about the school board meeting the night of Monday, August 28th, as a fellow student who attended this meeting to discuss the new standard attempting to be passed in Florida. I find it incredibly crude, the material that was discussed during a school board meeting in front of myself and other children watching from home or attending. I fully understand the weight of the situation and how books as such discussed should not be in schools. However, this argument has been going on far too long, and it is distracting from more important matters. When people from out of town and people who do not even have children attending these schools in our district show up to speak opinions about books, it takes up time that should be spent discussing more dire matters, such as the growing population of homeless students attending schools, or how schools do not have enough food for all students during lunch. It is disgusting for a grown man to high-five people and get excited to read crude passages, knowing that children are attending or watching from home. I came that night in support of the NAACP, or the National Association of Advancement for Colored People, and to talk about the new standard attempting to be passed. But instead, I was read aloud by grown men and women about the sexual scenes in books. Why weren't these people removed, but my parents and I were, for speaking out about it? These people make the situation which they are protesting worse as they read these crude passages aloud, and thus they have become part of the problem. These people have taken away from that of which many people had come to discuss that evening. I speak on behalf of the students of Indian River County Schools when I say that I would like to be assured that school board meetings are a safe place to discuss important topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Love and David Flint.
Hello, and thank you, School Board, for all of your hard work. I know this has become not the easiest of jobs. I am a mother of two in this district, 4th and 7th grade, Osceola and Storm Grove, that got the awards tonight. I came to read a couple quotes. Benjamin Franklin said, "If all printers were determined not to print anything till they were sure it would offend nobody, there would be very little printed." John F. Kennedy, "If this nation is to be wise as well as strong, if we are to achieve our destiny, then we need more new ideas for more wise men, reading more good books and more public libraries. These libraries should be open to all except the censor. We must know all the facts and hear all the alternatives and listen to all the criticisms. Let us welcome controversial books and controversial authors, for the Bill of Rights is the guardian of our security as well as our liberty. Banning books is just another form of bullying. It's all about fear." I am against book banning and censorship, and I think it's quite ridiculous considering that most middle and high schoolers have phones in their pockets with way worse material than anything you can find in our libraries. What am I for? I am for freedom of speech, freedom of press. I'm for nonpartisan school boards getting the hard work done. I am for complying with the desegregation order that is 56 years overdue. And I want to make this county a beautiful example of community working together, not the laughingstock of this nation and the world. I took a picture of my daughter's classroom 1 year ago of the banned library in the classroom, and it went viral. Local press, Harvard, Japanese television crews came to my house. And now, in Munich, Germany, they are doing an exhibition on banned books. It's going to be from October to February, and there's going to be a picture of our Indian River classroom in there. We are a poor example to the world. In Germany, they have memorials for their mistakes about banning books. And I hope we can go in a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you. David Flint, and then Sean Sexton.
Members of the board, thank you for your time. David Flint, citizen of Indian River County and a parent to multiple children enrolled here in Indian River schools. After the last meeting where a local hate group claimed that they won a battle, they've now begun to publicly turn their attention to challenging books about African American lives and lived experiences that they refer to as CRT. That aforementioned hate group will tell you that these books are dangerous. They're against the law and they must be removed. But that's simply not true, and you can do something about these challenges. 1557, the bill in which this hate group is using to target books on CRT, has been challenged by other districts. Guidance has been sought from the state of Florida due to the Department of Education's lack of clarity in the issue. The latest declaration from the State Attorney General on August 4th was in a motion to dismiss Parental versus School Board of Lake County, where Moody stated, and I quote, "House Bill 1557's meaning is clear. It applies to formal classroom instruction, not library books." The Attorney General also stated the legislature's decision that certain materials are inappropriate for classroom instruction does not mean that they are categorically inappropriate for the very different setting of a school library. The books that are being targeted for CRT present a worldview that I take seriously as a father of 3 children of color in this district. As their father, I have the awesome responsibility to direct their upbringing. These hate group members have no right to tell me or any other parents what my children may or may not read. And the state attorney has recently backed my rights for my children's access to these books in a public library. The challenging of books on the basis of CRT is nothing more than a continued whitewash of history, and I call on this school board to use the power given to it by the state to follow the law and to return these books to the library for access by our students. These challenges are not about protecting children, as was made so evident at the last meeting where the members of the local hate group decided to read sexually explicit material, well knowing that minors were in the room, the same minors that they say they're trying to protect. It was a stunt. It was a stunt to distract from actual issues, drawing attention to themselves as they continue to try down public education and gaslight statements to attack members of this community who would dare stand against them. We need to stop this nonsense and focus on issues that are affecting our students and our teachers. We need to focus on the importance of balanced, non-politicized classrooms, fully funding classrooms. Classroom materials should be balanced and fair and address all families. American history should be taught factually using materials that is not propaganda. African American history is American history, and it needs to be told as it was, not minimized to limit white fragility. In closing, I'd like to thank Dr. Jones for her leadership.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sean Sexton and Lance Lunsford.
So that I don't miss it, I'll thank you for your leadership ahead of time. I'm 1 year shy of 7 decades of being a resident of Indian River County, and I have grown up and lived part of Florida's recent history, and I have strong recollection of some fabulous governors in our past, governors who left education matters to education professionals. And I don't understand why really the stupidest person in the room in the chambers of government is determining things about education. Somebody who is not an education professional. I don't understand why we're even having a discussion about censoring the history of the black culture in America, why that's not something that we already want everybody to know everything about so that we can move forward together. And I want to close in saying that I'm a product of the public school system, as are all of our children, and some of you sitting there have been integral in their upbringing, and it's a noble profession. The people I admire the most in this world are teachers. They're the people who have influenced my life and made it all the richer than it might have been without them. And so I just want to express my gratitude for the Indian River County school system. Dr. Moore, thank you very much for leading a wonderful institution in our lives and supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Sexton. Lance Lunsford and Dr. Karen Hiltz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Many important, weighty topics have been brought before you this evening, and I want to encourage every citizen with a strong mind and a stout heart to make their intentions known before you. This is an excellent example of what democracy is about, regardless of your opinion on the issues. However, I'm here not to talk about these issues this evening, Madam Chair. You know why I'm here. I'm here to share about something beautiful that happened in our community last Friday night. I'm here on behalf of the Indian River County Taxpayers Association, where I had the privilege of serving as the chair of our first inaugural community council, where we brought together all the heads of government from across the county, state senator, board chair of the county commission, our superintendent, all the mayors, all the constitutional officers, to have a roundtable discussion on the future of the county. I want to come here to formally thank Dr. Moore for participating and representing the school district in this important conversation. I could not have planned this better, I have to admit, Madam Chair, because if I were to direct your attention to the seal right behind you that says "Stronger Together," nothing could more perfectly summarize the vision for our community council. That as a community, we came together to talk about the important issues of the day and achieve something that's rarely achieved in government: unity. And unity towards civility, towards honor, towards hashing out all the important issues in an open forum where we had not 30, not 50, but 92 attendance on a Friday night at the IG Center. Considering that was competing with the Vero Beach football game, we are very impressed by that. And of course, it's a big ask to ask school officials to come on a Friday evening, but we certainly are grateful for your attendance. And I will also add at the very end, Dr. Jones, that this is the first government hearing where we are officially going across the county and recognizing people. So when you're with County Commission Chair Ehrman, you can say you have bragging rights on being the first government body that we are formally recognizing and thanking for your attendance. And we look forward to hosting future events with this community council to spur greater action and to hold government officials accountable and really discuss and act upon a good, positive future for our county, for our taxpayers. And so I want to thank you formally again for participating, and we look forward to seeing all the great things that come from our school district and from all parts of government in our county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lunsford. Dr. Karen Hiltz, and then Anthony Brown.
Good evening. Let me begin by thanking the board for adopting policy that invites citizen involvement and input regarding curriculum review. Also, thank you to Ms. Bieber, Dr. Shafty, Ms. Rogers, and Mrs. Besura for shepherding the process. They were consistent, diligent, and responsive. As a participant of the Social Studies Review Committee, as well as previous ELA and math curriculum reviews, our primary objective, at least in my opinion, is to provide basic, appropriate, fact-based curriculum to help children learn what they need to get a job and succeed in life. I personally believe curriculum should be unbiased, balanced, and free of ideological agendas. As you were informed on September 11th, there were groups that reviewed either elementary, middle, or high school curriculum that consisted of a total of 9 subjects with 37 sets of submitted materials. Middle school, world history, U.S. history, and civics was the group I participated in, which included 17 of these sets. After many hours of attending meetings, reviewing material, and recording scores and comments, I was pleasantly surprised that our middle school group concluded National Geographic/Cengage to be the recommended publisher. I can't speak for the other members, but what I observed is that NG presented the more balanced, fact-based, and unbiased materials. They also included experts relevant to the subjects. For example, videos had archaeologists speak about artifacts found in various digs from around the world. Anthropologists provide research and findings relevant to human development and how it relates to societies and culture. NG also had the most comprehensive original source documents, and they were relevant to the subject. An example is U.S. history and civics weren't identical. There was overlap, as the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution are applicable to both, but there was also specific sources for the specific subjects. Regarding McGraw-Hill for high school, I would ask for caution. Materials reflect bias, ideology, information is skewed and unbalanced in some cases, and original sources were limited and not unique to the course. This is important because publishers use many consultants who interject their experience and develop patterns. If you review one subject and have concerns, similar concerns typically carry over into other subjects. Also, my participation in a review of McGraw-Hill materials for another Florida district identified several concerns. Though I don't agree with all of the recommendations, I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the process. I ask you to diligently consider the recommendations, as many of us were committed in our efforts to identify the best social studies curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hiltz. Anthony Brown, and then Kevin Browning.
Good evening. Madam Chair, first and foremost, I received recently some calls from friends, and as of the 28th, we are not looking so good in the eye of our nation. I want to thank you personally, Mrs. Barenberg and Mr. Barefoot, for your continued support and dedication to our children, our school district. I used to be under the illusion that the board was non-partisan, but recently I found out it to be very much partisan. Recently, people have asked for your resignation, Madam Chair, but tonight I come with a different cause. Recently, I saw some tweets where we used a mask and the Ku Klux Klan to identify Democrats. Undoubtedly, some of those books that somebody wants to ban, they need to read them, because post-civil rights era, it was the Dixiecrats and the moderate Republicans. The Dixiecrats were Thurman, it was George Wallace, and Bull O'Connor. They were today's Republican. So get your history right, read a book. It's also apparently to me that on our board, we have a person that represents my community that does not reach out to my community, does not interface with my community, but gets into a confrontation with you about a black man who happens to be a clown coming in here to tell you all about who we are in Indian River County. With that being said, I feel that some people need to give up their position because they're not representing the people of this community, to make a statement that systemic racism does not exist in Indian River County. Well, you can run that one by me. Also, I looked at some tweets. It's deplorable, some of the tweets that a board member would have. And by the way, we screenshot all of them. So we got them in our file, and they will be used at a later date. Ladies and gentlemen, stop it. You're destroying a beautiful community. You're not representing our people. We have 3 board members who are standing up, being tall, critical race theory, slavery. African Americans were complicit in the massacre in Tulsa. African Americans were complicit in Ocoee. My grandfather is buried in Ocoee. So undoubtedly, some of you don't know history. Stop banning the books and read a book. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Browning, Kevin Browning, and then Donald Baldwin. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Dr. Jones, for your unwavering professional leadership. It's sad, but in Florida, we've seen books banned by and about Black and brown and LGBTQ individuals and authors in regards to their history and experiences. Even books banned about Anne Frank, Roberto Clemente, baseball player, Rosa Parks, and even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Just let the kids read about and be taught the truth as it is and as it was. Regarding African American history, the victims of the Ocoee and Rosewood massacres did not cause violence to have themselves killed and their neighbors killed, with businesses and houses being burned to the ground. And slaves did not benefit from the horrors of slavery. Teachers should not have to teach those lies that make them uncomfortable, and neither should students be forced to sit in any class that teaches those dangerous lies. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Donald Baldwin and Tammy Bogart.
Good evening. Today we have hundreds of political prisoners in jails in District of Columbia. Over 1.1 million people went to DC back in 2021 on January 6th to protest election fraud. They had believed that they had the right to assemble by Amendment 1 of the Constitution. There were a handful that went into the Capitol, and hundreds were thrown into prison, into jail, in violation of Article 1, Section 9, the privilege of the right of habeas corpus. They were not charged, they were not granted freezing up. Anyhow, they were accused of insurrection without firearms. This would not have happened had our children been taught the Constitution and the history of the Constitution. We need to teach our children the heritage of this country. They need to learn the Constitution. Article 1 states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This is not separation of state and church. This is not freedom from religion. An official can tell somebody, suggest to somebody, that they should read the Bible if they're looking for pornography. So, anyhow, this Constitution should be taught in the schools. Okay?
Thank you very much. Tammy Bogart and Thomas Kenny.
Good evening. I wasn't able to make last month's meeting, but I did want to make some comments on what I observed. First, I want to address the insults and name-calling by school board members claiming that reading pornographic books aloud was a stunt. It was not a stunt. Parents and taxpayers went through the proper channels to have these books pulled off the shelves, and you chose to put them back on the shelves. in 2022. The statute that permits parents to read excerpts from obscene books aloud was knowingly and intentionally written so that parents and taxpayers had recourse with school boards who choose to be derelict in their duties. So as parents and taxpayers, they simply followed the law and used the rights afforded to them to hold our school board accountable and to expose your dereliction of duty. I would also like to comment on the malicious attacks on one of our school board members. I'll remind the community that Dr. Gene Posca is volunteering his time on this board because, unlike most board members, he donates his entire salary to the technical college. Yet despite not taking a salary and his busy schedule as a physician serving our community, he still shows up for every meeting to serve the parents and children of Indian River County. So the malicious attacks against a man with a servant's heart are divisive, unwarranted, and clearly politically motivated. And lastly, I would like to thank the superintendent and the school board for making the decision to remove 234 books from our school libraries to bring our school district into compliance with state statutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thomas Kenny and then Michael Marsh. Mr. Kenny here?
There he is. I have a handout. Is there, for the board, I have a handout.
Right there.
Once for the superintendent, the other 5 board members, thank you. How's everybody this evening? It's good online to get a picture of the back of my head. I just want to thank you all first for getting rid of the pornography out of the libraries, making some shelf space for some quality literature. I do know that our media specialists are skilled at what they do, and I'm sure that that space will be filled very quickly with good stuff. So I just want to thank you all. Pornography shouldn't be in anybody's hands, especially kids. There's plenty of literature that can broach serious subjects without all the pornographic events within it. Everybody knows that. A library is curated, nothing is banned. When you choose a book, it's at the cost of not choosing another. It's real simple, but people want to use ban and political language, much like this. It's a copy of the satire Babylon Bee, whose motto is fake news you can trust. This is what Mr. Posca posted. It's pretty hilarious. I laughed at it. Democrats continue proud tradition of wearing white masks to show political affiliation. It's just a joke. It's satire. If you look over here on the side, you know, on the latest news, Senate releases rules to allow Fetterman to take a bath in the reflecting pool. This is the kind of satire they do. Nation torn between party that openly supports perversion and party that only secretly supports perversion. And you see that down there. Nobody is isolated in their stuff. It's satire. But if you look on page 2 of my handout to you, the Indian River Freedom Coalition removed all Babylon Bee marketing and everything and just put the picture up there and displayed something contextually that can look completely different. Indian River Freedom Coalition, the original name was actually for people who were in the mass fights. It was started by
Jennifer Pippin and a few others, the name was, and it was taken over by someone else, and they went on to do We the People Indian River. And now this group here, some of the speakers who approached the chair tonight are in line with that. So I just want to thank you all that stunts are stunts. HB 1069 allowed our members to reveal the evidence of books and what they actually contain on August 28th. And you guys did the proper thing in unanimously voting, 3 of you reversing your votes to get rid of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Michael Marsh and then Kenneth Simon.
Good evening. It's just a joke, just like quoting Hitler. Remember that? We just had that, Moms for Liberty, right, folks? It's just a joke. What you have in front of you, as it's been so eloquently quoted, Democrats continue proud tradition of wearing masks. It's not a joke. Happy Yom Kippur, a day of atonement, a day of apologies, right? Well, we demand an apology from a sitting school board member for this garbage. And I quote, not my opinion, through the chair, Dr. Gene Posca posts this on his page. It's right here. No opinion. It's disgusting. It's a travesty. Matter of fact, the letter from Dr. Jacqueline Jacobs makes it clear about the policy violation, PO 0124. Members of the board will therefore strive for professional growth and will seek to exercise the best professional judgment and integrity. Board members strive to achieve and sustain the highest degree of ethical conduct to maintain the respect and confidence of their colleagues, students, parents, and of other members of the community. This trash does not. Now, I saw 2 community members to be attacked, 2 community members that do so much. But let's go back to the last meeting when we had the hired fake false prophet pastor that was in here. What really bothers me is to see law enforcement shake this creature's hand. 1 out of the 4 body cameras were working that night. But you know what? Tonight, our sheriff has kept us safe with SRDs every side of the room. But I want to know why that sergeant shook his hand. And why did we allow Tiffany Justice to jump in front and say, whoa, why are you removing this guy? If Michael Marsh did it, I would have a new booking number, Madam Chair. Now, library books. You know when they were entered? When Tiffany Justice was here. Through the chair, current board members that support Moms for Liberty. But we don't have that discussion. Through the chair, it's that disgusting Doc Jones did it. No. 2011, I don't even think Doc Jones was here, ladies and gentlemen. Not on the board. But you know what she was doing? She was doing the work. Speaking of the work, through the chair, Dr. Moore, it's actually gotten better since you've been here. Because you made sure that failed educators who went on to fail to run for county commission are no longer teaching our kids. Thank you, Dr. Moore. And apparently, history is rough for some. Quoting the insurrection from January 6th, I don't even know what to say. I got nothing, fam. But last and not least, as far as what I want my kids to be called, we have this form. Well, Doc, you know what I want? I want them to be called interracial queens, because that's what they are, Doc. They're on the back of my shirt. And last but not least, Doc Jones is here today, tomorrow, and she'll be here through 2028 as long as I have breath.
Thank you. Okay, Kenneth Simeon, and then Jennifer Pippin. Kenneth Simeon, I'm sorry. And Jennifer Pippin.
I'm concerned that you hired a media specialist, formerly known as librarians, who chose those dozens of books with their keyhole views into lurid literary pornography with descriptions of sex acts, including scenes of rape, incest, and homosexual eroticism. and those specialists selected, approved, presided over, and maintained that collection of books, keeping it within the reach of children for years. Now, at a cost of around $15 million, you're bringing aboard a team of mental health specialists to spread out through the county schools. I ask you to heed the advice an old captain once wrote to me, watch out for whitewater, which is where many ships have grounded and busted their hulls on a reef. In December of 1973, trustees of the American Psychiatric Association voted to no longer list homosexuality as an abnormal psychological disorder. They were made up of several who themselves were homosexual, and their motive to vote that way were not based on revelations of science or medicine, but on personal preference. My concern is that at this time you may hire some people for these jobs with master's degrees in psychology who may have minored in LGBT studies. And if a student refuses to use the preferred pronoun of a student who's wanting to transition into the opposite sex of their natural birth, then the student who refuses to go along with those ideas will be diagnosed as homophobic and then be sent to the mental health specialist for correction with some kind of therapy ensuing. You say diversity is a wonderful thing, but like the word privacy, it can be widely defined in an era of society in which the old immorality has become the new morality, and the old morality has become the new immorality, where children are being misled to judge others by the color of someone's skin rather than the content of the character. And they hear, instead of a boy can grow up to be a man, they hear that he can grow up to be a woman, and that a little girl can grow up to be a man. I suggest we replace this with the Bible, which inspired moral virtues for 340 years in schools in America. Until the early 1960s, it was taken out of school, and so was prayer. Please let our public schools be a sanctuary and an asylum for learning, and have books that employ children's minds and wills to attain unto noble abilities.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Pippin. And then the last speaker on citizen input of this area is Melissa Kelsberdig.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Pippin, and I'm the proud chairman of Moms for Liberty, Indian River, Florida. I would like to thank the board for reversing their votes on the pornographic and sexually explicit books, and a special thank you to Dr. Posca and Ms. Rosario for never wavering through the entire process. Thank you, Dr. Moore, and your staff for getting the rest of our list out of the schools in record time. Parents had and have the fundamental right to remove their minor children from the last meeting or this meeting, or from watching on YouTube at the last meeting or this meeting or any meeting in the future. Pocket constitutions have been donated all over the county except for our 4 public middle schools. I'm asking please for you to discuss and revise the policy 9700.01, where donations tied to statute like the teachings of the Constitution, the Holocaust, African American in history, and etc., doesn't have to get a label not endorsed by the school district, because it's tied to statute. Just like teachers get permission for supplemental materials, and this is just that. 2 years in a row now, our county was the only county in Florida that offered free donations and students didn't receive in our public schools. Please look at revising that policy. Dr. Posca is being attacked by the liberals, including the NAACP, on a failing online petition for speaking truth at the last school board meeting. He's a medical doctor saving lives during the day and donating his salary to serve on the school board to trade school for students in this county. I guarantee no one opposing him can say they do either of these things for the people in our community. Shame on the NAACP and the minority of the liberals in this county, and you don't speak for the majority of us saving education in this country. Thank you, Dr. Posca, for your support in our community and your career and donation of your salary on this board to children while speaking the truth while doing so. Don't let the minority of the population distract you and the vows you took as a medical doctor and an elected school board member. I also would like to remind this board, if we're going to talk about not following the law or not following ethics or not doing something right, this school district was one of the only school districts that violated the mandatory masking against the governor's orders. This was one of the first school districts that had pornography and sexually explicit content challenged in the schools and voted to put it back on the shelves, while other counties have superseded and getting them off some years ago, right? So there has been other things that this district has done that has not been aligned to statute and state law. So if you're going to go after one person and one thing, you need to look at the entire board and what they've done. Mr. Barefoot has a sunshine violation. So again, if we're going to look at all of these things.
Let's just, through the chair, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, through the chair, Mr. Barefoot has sunshine violation. So again, don't just focus on one thing, focus on everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Kells-Burdick. Melissa Kells-Burdick. Thank you. Thank you.
You never know what you're going to follow. So I might have somewhat of a solution. I'd like to. So if you would just bear with me. It's clear from last month's meeting that we are at an impasse with two ideological thoughts that cannot coexist. The entire country and this county has spent the better part of the past 2 years trying to make one side agree with the other, and all sorts of divisive moves have been played by both sides. It's also evident that the Bible is well known and well quoted within these walls. It's also noted that we have all fallen short of discourse and actions towards each other and our people who were once our neighbors. So I include myself in this. So I asked, so what do we do? So I propose a classical school track within Vero Beach High School. I'm not saying charter, so everybody just get the charter out of your head. Why would you do this? Well, basic business is because there's currently classical Christian and elementary schools popping up. There's 3 of them right now. They are opening up in the community, they are thriving, and there's more on the way. Parents are going to want options when we're done with this. Also, parents want choice. This is evidence. Parents are awake. They're invested in child's education. And this is good for our community. It's also evident in the increased attendance at school board meetings. We speak about diversity, but have we really addressed what it looks like in academia without race and sex being addressed? Further, teachers do not want to be beholden to politicized unions and federal agendas. They want to teach. I was a teacher. I know what I'm speaking of, and I was also a union rep. So classical education offers such freedom. Lastly, education vouchers have begun to follow the families in Indian River County, and this is only going to expand with more options. That means less tax dollars. I don't have to explain this to you folks. I myself was a recipient of those dollars. It felt great. It's my money. It goes with my kid. When more people find out that they can do this and there's more options, they'll want it. So it would behoove the public school to say, what are the parents going for? How can we get this in our public high school? How do you do this? Well, you already do it with the AP track. You already do it with the hosted track at the Vero Beach High School. You could make it work. It's not that difficult. You could also model it as a Vero Beach Classical High School as a feeder school for the new college in Sarasota, which would be really an innovative idea. Enough with the government stuff. It's a good idea. Also, a classical education was designed for a republic that placed the power of government squarely, securely, and entirely in the hands of the people, all people. We teach this one child at a time. We do not need a village to raise a child. We need a self-governed, literate populace, and that is what we are missing, because we're arguing about the sex and the race. We do not we need parental involvement. Dr. Moore, you spoke of a boutique-style school.
Thank you.
This
Your
could be
time is
your
up.
legacy.
Thank you.
Please consider it. Thank you.
All right. The next thing on the agenda, I move the discussion item of African American standards next, but I have several pieces of paper I want to make sure I don't miss anyone, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. I'm going to adjourn for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back at 7:48. I'm sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. If you don't mind sitting down for 1 minute, I should ask for citizen input after this part before we go into discussion. So any board members, any comments, please. Ms. Rosario.
Yeah, I would like to make a few comments. Let me see. Someone made a comment about why teachers aren't coming to board meetings. Teachers aren't coming because they're fearing retaliation when they get back to school. So that has to be addressed. If teachers do not feel free enough to come up to the podium and share their First Amendment right, because they are fearful that they're going to have retribution when they get back to the schools, that's an issue in and of itself. Teachers and all school staff should be free enough to come to this podium and feel safe enough to share how they feel at any time, day or night, no matter what. We are here to support every teacher and every staff member. And if a teacher does not feel that they are comfortable coming here, it's not because of the board members, or at least it's not because of me. It's probably because of administration putting down, putting that pressure on teachers or staff members. So I just wanted to make that clear. Also, I think it's pretty ridiculous. Somebody mentioned something about the permission for the nicknames. I have to admit, I think that's absolutely ridiculous to be able to ask parents for permission for their nicknames in schools. I think that is just the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I know that I asked the superintendent for support on that. He provided, his answer was DOE rule, but that's not what the law says. The law does not say that we have to ask for permission for nicknames. The law says that we just cannot force compelled speech on pronouns, you know, forcing a teacher or someone in the staff to call a student by a pronoun or another name that the parent is not aware of, and or the school district or the teacher or the person leading doesn't feel comfortable calling that child by that pronoun or name. That's what the law says. The law doesn't say anything about nicknames. So, you know, if your name is, you know, I don't know, Jonathan, and they call you John, I mean, John is technically a nickname for Jonathan. I think that's ridiculous for a parent to have to give permission for the use of John in the schools. Something has to be done there. I've already inquired about it. I hope that there would be more information that would be provided on that. So for the record, that's how I feel on that issue. There were a couple of comments about citizen input, and I will say that the chair has changed some of her, I guess, warnings or highlights at the onset of citizen input. The lobby has changed slightly, and obviously there are no standing rooms. I know a lot of it is strategy to try to quell citizens' comments, but I understand, based on the last meeting, why some of these changes have occurred. So I will also say that nothing precludes a person, any person, from coming up and using their First Amendment right to say whatever they want to say. If you want to read from a book, you can read from a book. It doesn't matter who's out in the lobby with a computer. If you want to challenge a book, you can follow the challenge process, or you can read a book here. Someone said something about children being present. It's terrible that children were present if they heard those books. It's also terrible that the books are made available to students in libraries. And so the law says it doesn't matter whether a book is taken out or how many times a book has been checked out of a library. That doesn't matter. The law actually says that those books shall not be available. That's the language in the statutes. Shall not be available means they should not be available. Whether you take it out once or take it out 500 times or it's never taken out for the life of the book on the shelf, it doesn't matter. Shall not be available means it shall not be on the shelf gaining dust or being utilized or being checked out. So that's the standard from the statute. So if a book is on our shelves, which actually is really the linchpin here, is the what is in statute that allows a parent, because it actually says that a parent has the right to read a book from the podium. Whether the book has something bad in it or not, you all should be the judge of that, right? If you all did not like it and you didn't want your children to hear it, then you should be mad that the book was on the shelf in the first place, to be made available to children. Now, we are not a public library system. That's the difference. We're not a public library system. We are a school system that happens to have a library in it, and we are responsible for what goes on the shelves in the library, and it has to align with statute. It has to align with our standards. That's what we are required by law to do. And so that's what we have been doing. And so if the law allows a book to be read, that's what we have to allow. Clearly, First Amendment right does not allow, and of course our attorney can confirm, you just can't incite a riot, right? You can't say anything and everything. You cannot incite a riot with your First Amendment right. But otherwise, if you want to use this podium, you can use the podium. Clearly, there are other parameters by going through the chair and so on and so forth. I will also say there was a comment on a lawsuit regarding the Attorney General with Parental et al. Versus the School Board of Lake County. That comment was taken out of context because that case is still hasn't been heard yet. The judge has not declared a decision on that case yet, so it's too premature to even make a comment such as what Attorney General Moody may or may not have said regarding that case. There was another comment about the books that are in the libraries. I believe someone mentioned Carter Woodson. I'm not sure who exactly it was. I will confirm that we do have books from Carter Wilson in our library. We also, I think somebody mentioned something about Roberto Clemente. Those books have not been taken off of our shelves. We have 16 Roberto Clemente books in our district. As far as I'm concerned, we should have more. And then lastly, I'm going to make a comment, and this is a personal comment. I am a tax-paying citizen, and I do homeschool my child. And quite frankly, it's nobody's business what I do with my kid. If I want to use the voucher system, I could. I'm not, but if I do, that's my business. It's nobody's business. And anyone else who is a tax-paying citizen who is a homeschooler can also use that right, because that's the right that was given to them by the law. It's available to them. But that's their business. It's nobody else's business. And what you do with your children is your concern and your business, and you can. And what I do with mine is my business, and that is fine. But to use this podium to try to address a board member who homeschools and to ask them that they have to actually give you an answer of what they do personally, that's not the work of the board. That is not the work of the board.
Thank you, Ms. Rosario. Ms. Berenborg?
If Dr.
Or
Pascal.
Dr. Pasca, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say that I think the sharing of a Babylon Bee article shouldn't be deeply offensive. It's a satirical comedy news organization. I think everybody knows that. But if it does offend you, I'd have to ask, to a certain extent, why? And is it because of the inherent element of truth about the history of the Democrat Party that offends you? And what is that truth, since you've all brought it up today? The truth is that the Democrats...
Sorry, Dr. Pasca. It's Dr. Pasca's turn. We listen to you. You listen to us.
The truth is the Democrats were the primary owners of slaves in America. They then fought and died trying to keep slavery. The Democrats then fought black integration in America. The Democrats created the KKK to intimidate and destroy the black community, and frequently targeted patriotic black Americans who were activists and politicians in the Republican Party. As an example, Senate candidate George Ashburn. In the 1980s, the CIA allegedly funded hip-hop artists, including NWA, Africa Bambaataa, and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, with the intent to corrupt young black Americans and entice them with drugs, sex, and violence through its glorification. At the same time, in the 1980s, the CIA also flooded black communities with drugs, including a never-ending supply of crack cocaine, which they used to fund their Contra movement in Nicaragua. The current leadership of the Democrat Party was trained by these segregationists and former KKK members, and subsequently enacted Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act that was sponsored by Joe Biden and signed by Democrat President Bill Clinton in '94. The result was the mass incarceration of primarily young black men for nonviolent crimes, including the possession of the very drugs the government helped to make, transport, and then distribute specifically into impoverished inner-city black communities. If you were truly offended by this, I'm sorry, because it's not my goal to offend you. However, I would recommend considering that maybe this Babylon Bee article offends you because the history is offensive to you. I love and care about every person I meet, and I always treat them fairly and with respect. And I think the vast majority of people who are registered Democrats are wonderful people, and I'm friends with many. Any comments I have about a, quote, Democrat is referring to a leadership. I'm going to continue to do my duty as elected to make our schools safer, to focus on teaching, not indoctrinating, to fight for our community's basic human rights, as this board has repeatedly fought to obstruct them, as they tried to do just last week regarding our freedom of speech in these very board meetings. I will continue to fight to allow an equal opportunity for every child to succeed, including women whose rights are once again being taken away by men. It doesn't matter if you call me names, make death threats against me, which started several months ago after I publicly opposed the racist equity policy that has schools treat Asian, black, and white kids differently. It doesn't matter if you blackmail me to vote with certain board members, which a local political consultant did nearly a year ago. Regardless of these attacks, I will continue to stand up for what is right in Indian River County.
Thank you, Dr. Posca. Ms. Berenborg? Thank
Sure,
you.
please.
No clapping, no. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to address a couple of statements that were made on this dais.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask that board members not act as attorneys. We have an attorney. That person studied the law. We can refer to law, we can look at law, but I would not want to interpret the law for my fellow board members. I would refer to an attorney to do that. So I'm going to say that the comment about strategy to quell speakers, I didn't realize that we were going to limit people standing in the back. As a matter of fact, I went up to several people before the meeting and said, why are we doing that? I had no idea. But I was told something, and I did ask, could that statement be told at the beginning of the meeting? And it wasn't said. So I would ask for, after I'm done speaking, if Dr. Moore could explain that. It's interesting because the parent has the right to read from the podium is what I believe you said, and I quoted you, Mrs. Rosario. But yet the statement right before that you said is that it's too early to make a comment about the speaker, yet you just got finished stating that everyone has their First Amendment right. So you talked about a speaker making a comment about an attorney general's statement, but yet then you said it's too early to make that comment. They have the right to make that comment. You said they have their First Amendment right, so they did have that right to make the comment, so please don't correct them that they didn't. Another thing that board members do is we go through ethics training every year. Maybe we should go through it weekly. We represent the board corporate, not as an individual, which means in our training, they teach you, or we should have learned, that we're not all the same politically, but we represent education, we represent our communities, and our focus should be on education, not on creating political divide. And that's part of why they made this position for years nonpartisan, because of the political divide. Thank you, Tallahassee. But calling other board members names and stating people with a fascist ideology would support, you made that statement in the last workshop, Dr. Posca, about me.
Madam Chair.
That is not
point of
how.
order.
No,
Point of
no,
order.
she has, no.
I have the right to say it.
That
I
she has
am
the
not a
right to
community member
speak.
speaking
There's
there.
no point of order.
This is for the attorney.
All right,
The
go ahead.
question here was, the comment, the open comment was for us to make comments on citizen input. Are we doing citizen input, or are we doing general
I think we've done general.
general board comments? Because if it's general board comments, that should be reserved for board member matters.
As framed, it was response to what was stated during open citizen comment. That said, this has been pretty wide-ranging by most of the board members. I would recommend, if we have comments, that one, we try to, well, let me strike that. Speak basically at the end when it's time for commissioner comment would be the appropriate time. Having said that, we've gone pretty wide-ranging so far on this, and I think it's up to the board.
The point of order is if there's a rule broken or assembly, rule broken and so forth, so. Okay, go
I
ahead.
would like to just, it hasn't gone wide range.
Excuse me,
Everything
but
that
I believe I had the
talking to the
floor.
attorney.
Ms. Rosario?
I'm going to
Ms.
ask him,
Rosario?
can you make the point of order? She made a point of order about whether or not a rule is broken in Robert's rules. Was a rule broken in Robert's rules?
I do not believe a rule was broken in Robert's rules. That said, we are going wide-ranging, and there's nothing precluding these conversations from occurring during board comment.
This isn't board comment.
This is citizen, yeah.
This is
Citizen
just
input.
response to
And,
citizen input. Board comment is at the end of the board meeting.
I think we've gone a little wide range on this
Can
one.
I finish my
Yeah,
statement?
I'm just going to let her keep going,
Thank you.
and then we'll keep going at the end with board member matters. Then I'm going to take a break before we start on the African-American standards.
Okay. My point being, before I was interrupted, was, and this is exactly my point, how unprofessional some behavior is happening on this dais, and it needs to stop. This is not how a professional board acts, and it's disgusting to have an attack by somebody that literally was not involved in all the decision-making that happened in the past, doesn't realize all the attorney conversations we had over things, especially about books, which has come up on these comments, so I'm going to refer to that. Do I want books that have those statements in them? No. But I was talking to attorneys at the time about how we have to proceed with this. And it's a very delicate thing to do because we don't want to get into the perception of banning books. And so walking with caution, of course, now you're labeled that you either did one side or the other with a book. And it's not fair, especially coming from a fellow board member who wasn't there dealing with that at the time. So I'd like to ask for a board member to please be respectful when they're talking to other board members. Be respectful to people at that podium. Be respectful to all sides. It used to be in America, you could come and say whatever you wanted about the opposite side, and you had the right to say it. And now it's gotten ridiculous. It really has. We represent our community, the entire community. And you can have a political thought, you can have a political statement out there. That's your right. But if you're going to sit here as an elected official, which I'm not sure being appointed to the board is an elected official, but I'll just go with that. If we have a focus on education, if you truly wanted to be on this board because you cared about education, then care about education. Don't care about taking a political stand on something and causing all this strife and people to come to our meetings and talk about things that have nothing to do with what we really need to focus on. We need to focus on our kids and the education of our kids. And I'm so sick of all this fighting and the political nonsense that's going on and calling people names and interrupting people when they're trying to speak and all this other stuff. Please get to the point, listen to people, take it in, make the best decision you can, speak to the attorney, and when you're on this dais and you're dealing with a really tough situation, you talk to the person that actually has the attorney's degree.
Okay, Mr. Barefoot, do you have anything to say? You can hear us?
Yes, I think enough's been said already. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I respond to that a little bit?
Let me say my stuff first.
Okay.
Thank you to all who came out to speak tonight. I do listen to everyone. We can see we have some opposite feelings, but what I still believe in, and after 43 years in this community, I will continue to fight for the best for our students here in Indian River County in the public school system. You know, when I was elected to serve in this role, I took it very, very seriously. And every day I'm doing something regarding our schools and giving back as much as I can. I do believe that when we take a look at all of the children and all of our parents and our diversity, we have a wonderful, wonderful school system. Sometimes I don't think we brag enough, like Dr. Moore was bragging a little bit on Cognia today. I know what that means. I've gone through accreditation. It is a lot of work, and then to have every school go through it, a bunch of work. As far as our teachers, I know many of them, been to all the schools, going on my second time around right now, and they are working their tails off. What they are doing is teaching the standards, and obviously we're assessing the students with our new testing, and last year, for the first year in a test, we did a great job. And Dr. Moore, that's what we need to be talking about at all angles. And I'm sorry that this has happened as far as this person here, this person there. But I too, whenever I make a decision or a vote, I'm trying to look at all of the aspects of what we're doing. This is a community I truly love. This is a school district that I know has great potential. And public education, you know, it's a competitive field out there right now. People can go to private or public schools and have vouchers. Homeschool people can have vouchers. And what I want is to make sure that we do our best for those students who choose to stay in public education every single day. So I will continue to fight for that. We all have a right to say our opinion, and then when the board votes, that's how the board votes, and you support it. That's what you do. So that's what, you know, as board chair, somebody at FSBA said, this is the toughest time to be on the board. I thought, oh, great. But I think if we continually move forward with disagreeing with respect, if we do disagree, and not really targeting anything as far as what we're doing, I think we can do it. And I think it's our job and it's our responsibility to do this. And again, board votes, 3-2, whatever it is, we move forward and we support that. And that's what I want to continue to do as a board. Dr. Posca.
Sure. Just in response of prior comments, I didn't specifically address you, Terry, when I made that comment first. And
I went back.
at the time, we were discussing as a board a response to change public comment and restrict freedom of speech. And some of those changes that we were looking at were moving public comment to the end of the meeting, so it really has no bearing or purpose on the meeting, making it so it's not broadcast on the TV, so the rest of the community can't see it, preventing public comments and restricting it potentially to people who have parents in our schools, adding extremely detailed personal information to the form so we know pretty much everything about you, and others. And I wasn't trying to call you a name, and I didn't name you specifically. I was merely providing an objective analysis of somebody who would support doing those things.
Thank you, Dr. Posca.
Dr. Jones?
Yes, go ahead.
Just one more comment.
Yeah, one more comment.
I'm not going to go back and forth. I just want to refer to the fact that I did not ask to censor citizens at all. What I asked for was a check mark for a box to say, are you a parent or not? As Mrs. Rosario just stated, a parent has the right to read from the podium about the books because of the change of that law. And so I wanted just that check mark so that the board chair knows who it is that's speaking at the podium. I didn't ask for anything else So for you to just say that I'm trying to censor speech, that's not true. I just want the board chair to know who is speaking from the podium.
All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break before we
Good idea.
start the next discussion, which will be on African American standards, and I will be calling the people up who want to speak about those. Thank you. I have moved the discussion item African American standards right after citizen input. So before I say anything, we will have people who wish to speak on that. And I've got several speakers, so I will call you up. And I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. So if your name isn't on there by the end, please let me know. Our first speaker on discussion 12A, African American standards, is Cindy Gibbs. Is she out there?
She's outside.
Okay. And after Cindy Gibbs, we have David Flint.
David's right there. Come on.
I might have called it a little early, I'm sorry. Okay, Cindy Gibbs on African American standards, followed by David Flint. Start the clock at 3 minutes.
Sorry about that. I was getting some air.
Thank you.
I don't have anything formally written. I just wanted to say that if we decide to block free speech about any marginalized community, it just opens the door to blocking the door for all marginalized communities. I don't see any reason why we can't be studying in high school about Harvey Milk. People should know who these people are in our community, and I know that's a gay protester, right, and a gay person, but when we start talking about marginalized groups of any kind, we need to speak the truth about all of it and not be biased in any way about all of it, obviously age appropriate. But I can't believe we're going down a path of even considering that we wouldn't include real African American history in our schools. And as has been mentioned at many other board meetings, we have a font of knowledge in this community in Johnny May Perry. And all of the people who are involved in the Gifford Historical Society. When I first started in this district, and I didn't really know so much about Florida history, I went to the library and I studied as much about it as I could. As a Philadelphian, I can tell you anything you want to know about early American history. Florida, not so much. So now I know, because I went to the library, and one of the things I did was to read about the Gifford Historical Society, and the community was something I had never heard of from coming up north. We have so many people from outside of this area moving here. It's such an important history. It's right here, and we're wasting it. So I certainly hope that people who live in the Gifford community, know the Gifford experience, are willing to put together some materials, or maybe it's a field trip. Something that is realistic and authentic to bring it to life for our kids. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. David Flint, followed by Angela Bowling.
Good evening again. David Flint, father of 3 African-American children here in the district. I don't have anything, again, formally prepared, but you know this is something that I'm going to continue to speak on because it's passionate. It's a passion of mine to make sure that my children understand accurate history. Earlier this evening in citizen input, there was a lady, Marion Bender, who came and she spoke about her 14-year-old daughter who was here with her 13-year-old African-American best friend. Marion got a little choked up as she was speaking. That African-American best friend that her daughter refers to is my daughter, who was here and spoke last month. When Katie, my daughter's best friend, spoke to one of her teachers about the African-American history standards, his response was, I would be appalled having to teach that slavery was beneficial. I would cringe having to look out over a class with African-American students in it, or even white students, any students, and make that statement. And I would feel absolutely disgusted for the children that had to hear that statement be made. And we hear that. We heard that a month ago. We've made that expression very clear. My expectation was a month ago, it remains today, that every single member of this board sends a letter to the Department of Education and let them know that the African American history standards need to be revised, and specifically the standard that says slavery is beneficial needs to be removed. Now, I know that Dr. Peggy Jones, thank you for your leadership on this. I know you sent the first letter from the school board. We appreciate that. That meant the world to my daughter. It did. She came and she said thank you for it, not because I asked her to, but because it meant the world, that she felt heard. Followed up by other board members who provided their own letters, and then others that said they would support letters. We still had one individual who said that he wouldn't. And I again ask for this board to think about their constituents in the Fellsmere community, where 60% of the population are people of color, that they would even conscionably not write a letter to the DOE to call for that to be removed. It's unconscionable. It is. So I ask you all to be on the right side of history when it comes to these standards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Angela Bowling and Michael Marsh.
Okay, thanks. I don't have too much. I appreciate that some of our school board members, through the chair, have contacted the State Board of Education about the proposed standards, social studies standards, and also the remarks at the last school board meeting that said, essentially, I reword, the standards need to mean what they say and say what they mean. We shouldn't have to be contacting the writers of the standards to find out that something that says slaves benefited from their condition, in other words. Nobody should need to contact the writers to understand that what they really meant to say was actually slaves developed skills, qualities of individual. You guys, I am messed up here. All right, no one should need to contact the writers of the standards to understand what they really meant to say with slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. Rewrite the standard to actually speak of the, quote, qualities of individuals who went through slavery, if that's what we're really supposed to believe that the clarification's intent was, because in its current form it says nothing remotely like that. I don't understand why slavery is not even mentioned in the kindergarten through 4th grade standards. It doesn't, it has lots of nice things about identifying African American inventors, explorers, and artists, and those who demonstrated civic service, and the oral traditions and folk tales of African Americans. But it does not use the word slavery, doesn't introduce the concept of slavery until 5th grade. So how can we, but in 3rd grade, we're supposed to be teaching about Booker T. Washington as he contributed to the civic world. But how can we teach about Booker T. Washington if we have not actually addressed the first 9 years of his life where he was enslaved on a Virginia plantation? We need to acknowledge the obstacles he faced in his accomplishments and his motivations. So that's just another issue I have with the standards that we should be contacting our Board of Education about. Also, I wonder if the standards were to be approved in their current form for next year, do we have the option of the parents saying, we opt out of specific lessons that we don't want our children to participate in? And who's going to do the complicated work of notifying the parents in time of when those lessons are going to be happening? That seems like a really difficult situation. So that's all I have on that
Thank you
tonight.
very much. Michael Marsh and then Thomas Kenny.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to clarify the point of the discussions right now, or the comments right now, are specific to this item.
Yes.
So just as we have in policy, if you've spoken to this item during citizen input, you cannot speak to it again now. So you can only
Okay.
speak to one item.
One item at a time. That's correct. Ms. Bowling did not.
I didn't accuse you of.
Okay.
I'm clarifying, point
Go-
of clarification for the attorney for the chair to take care of.
That is correct. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Marsh?
Thank you, Michael C. Marsh, proud parent of 2 beautiful interracial queens over at Oslo Middle School. And I'm here tonight to discuss our African American history standards. And I want to thank you, Doc Jones, for your fierce and fearless leadership for writing this letter to our Commissioner of Education. And I just want to highlight a few areas. Doc Jones, in your letter, you talk about the standard is to be implemented in the middle grades. And it states the following: examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves: agricultural work, painting, carpeting, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, and transportation. Directly below this standard is the clarification. Instruction includes how slaves developed skills which, in some instances, could be applied for their personal benefit. I ask that you delete this standard, as I do not think any African American family in America really believes what their ancestors were forced to do, or in many cases sold to do, was any kind of choice. The letter goes on to talk about the Parental Bill of Rights that we love here. The Parental Rights Bill states the following: a parent can withhold their child from any portion of a curriculum if they believe such material is harmful. I would not allow my children or grandchildren to listen to this material. This is harmful because we are not telling the truth. It is truly unconscionable saying that slaves learned a skill later for life. This standard is simply an embarrassing mark on our state. I ask that you quickly regroup with this committee and state board to delete this standard. I also ask that you call on representatives from our state and local NAACP for input on all these African American standards. As a side note, the committee members who worked on these standards are clearly saying most did not agree with this standard or clarification. Only 2 out of the 13 agreed with this standard, and now it seems like blame is being passed all around. I leave you with this. Can you imagine an African American student sitting in a middle school class when the teacher states that slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit? I cannot. In addition, can you imagine an African American teacher required to teach this? I cannot. I also cannot imagine a student of any race learning this information, or any teacher of any race teaching this information. We can never judge anything we have not experienced. Let the history books show that you, as the Commissioner of Education, did the right thing in this situation. A true leader knows when to change something that is just not right. Regards, our school board chair, Doc Peggy Jones. And these 2 beautiful interracial queens would never learn this garbage, that the slaves benefited from slavery. Absolutely not. And I guarantee that many teachers would not subject my daughters to this disgusting rhetoric. So thank you, Doc Jones, for constantly being a fierce and fearless leader, even amongst those death threats. Good night.
Thank you. Thomas Kenny, then Jennifer Pippin.
I'm going to read, check 1, 2, 1, 2, is that on? Okay, sorry, didn't hear it. I'm going to read from an abolitionist, Frederick Douglass, talking about how his master wouldn't allow him to learn to read against the wishes of the master's wife, who wanted to teach him. The very decided manner with which he spoke and strove to impress his wife with the evil consequences of giving me instruction served to convince me that he was deeply sensible of the truths he was uttering. It gave me the best assurance that I might rely with the utmost confidence on the results which he said would flow from teaching me to read. What he most dreaded, I most desired. What he most loved, that I most hated. That which to him was great evil to be carefully shunned was to me great good to be diligently sought. And the argument which he so warmly urged against my learning to read only served to inspire me with a desire and determination to learn. In learning to read, I owe as much to the bitter opposition of my master as to the kindly aid of my mistress. I acknowledge the benefit of both. Dr. Allen acknowledged this passage from the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. Dr. Allen, the retired U.S. Constitution and political philosophy, the emeritus professor of Michigan State University, and also former commission on civil rights. He said this about that clause that everyone's crazy about. I think every intellect can understand the language written there if people will only take the time to read it. And it's only those who don't take the time to read it who will misstate it. And the Vice President of the United States misstated it. And now Dr. Jones is leading the political effort she started. And she's using this to run our school system in this manner. So, Lastly, the NAACP is the plaintiff in a 59-year-old case of the desegregation order, and on the Joint Equity Work Group, the chair, Dr. Peggy Jones, sits on the defense team. In her letter to the DOE, she wrote, "I also ask that you call in representatives from our state and local NAACP branches for input on all the African American standards." I'm really calling for Dr. Jones to step down from the Joint Equity Work Group. At Monday's NAACP Town Hall, this is back in August, Tony Brown stated, the Ocoee and Rosewood massacres were not being taught, which by state law, the Ocoee has to be HB 1213. Only African American history books were being banned. That's another quote, not true. Last comment was said after I pointed out to him that the task force was led by 2 preeminent African American scholars and 3 additional from the school system. The others being Dr. Francis.
Thank you, Thomas.
Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Jennifer Pippin, thank you.
Good evening, and just a point of clarification, we do not have the AP African American History courses in SDIRC schools. This was found out through a public records request. This has been shared across the county, including the NAACP shared on social media, so just a point of clarification. What I would like to know through the chair, did you show up or make any comments or email or call the Board of Education before the vote on the updated curriculum with your concerns prior to the vote at the state level? And I'd like to also know if the rest of the community did, because that's absolutely their right. I went back and watched the Board of Education video that's readily available online with the vote, and I didn't really recognize anyone here that's been attending the local school board meetings, and this was done at a state level. So again, you can't trump what's going on at the state level. If they make that curriculum, you have to advocate for it at the state level, because local does not trump state, does not trump federal, okay? So, and also through the chair, I know you may not agree with the proposed studies, but the district still has to follow the curriculum. You said you wouldn't require the district to follow the curriculum to a local liberal news source, and even if you don't agree with something, again, just like the masking, you still have to follow the law and the guidelines from the state. Your opinions don't trump state standards. I'd also like to touch on the SDIRC versus NAACP desegregation order again, which is tied to the standards. It has cost us taxpayers and parents in this county $840,765.10 from 2015 to 2023, that's 8 years. So that's on average a little over $105,000 annually, and it's 59 years ongoing. It's ridiculous, and this has been going on for way too long. You know, it's not discussed, and there's, you know, pro bono NAACP lawyers. It hasn't cost them any money, but it's costing us, every single person in this room, taxpayer dollars. That should concern everybody. That's not over political lines or anything. Again, like pornography and everything else, that should be non-political. It should be a nonpartisan issue that this much money is going to this desegregation order. And the NAACP representative for the work group and their education director, Kevin Browning, he was making racist remarks at the school board meeting. He got fired from his job for racist and sexist remarks in 2023. Again, this all ties into the desegregation order and what is being taught in the schools and what is not being taught in the schools as far as African history standards. We do need this desegregation order to end, and how much more time and money needs to be spent, you know, of our taxpayer money on this desegregation order. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pippin. I want to make sure that I called on everyone as far as African American standards. I have so much here, I just want to make sure. Okay, now I brought this up because I wanted to talk about it. As last meeting, we had so many speakers, we didn't get to it till about 9:30 or 10. August 1st, that is correct, I sent a letter to the governor and the commissioner and State Board of Education. The first I had heard of it was when the superintendent received an email July 26th saying that we were moving forward with these standards. Then we received an email about a week and a half later saying that full implementation was not going to happen until next year, 24-25 school year. I wrote a letter, and Dr. Moore shared that with all board members. I know Mrs. Berenborg also shared a letter she wrote. And basically, I said I would not support the teaching of the standard and the clarification of the standard. If the standard is going to be implemented, and students have to learn it and teachers have to teach it, then it is appropriate, if a parent does not want their child in there, to pull that child out of the class. And I also talked with Dr. Moore, I hope we didn't get to the point where we were forcing, especially an African-American teacher, to teach us. And we've had a little bit of discussion at our workshops on this. And as I said, I sent a letter, Ms. Berenborg sent a letter, and I still feel very strongly about this. When you look at, I'm just going to repeat that one area, and as far as a comment with intellect, I've looked at this a lot. Examine the various duties and trades performed by slaves: agricultural work, painting, carpeting, tailoring, domestic service, blacksmithing, and transportation. And then the clarification includes how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. I do not agree with that. The education of children is a fundamental value of the people of the state of Florida. It is therefore a paramount duty of the state to make adequate provision for the education for all children residing within its border. Where this will end up, I don't know. But the fact that they are holding on it for another year, maybe they are listening to a few things, I don't know. But when we look at this, I just thought it would be great if the board, not my letter or Ms. Berenborg's letter, even just made a statement saying we have concerns about this standard and clarification. That's the one thing I wanted to discuss with the board, and we did have that last time, but it wasn't until about 10 o'clock at night, so I wanted to bring that up again, that this is how I feel. I wrote the letter. It's something that I believe in. We are a majority-minority district, basically, and we are here to serve all of our students. And as a former middle school principal, I certainly could not think I could go into a classroom where a teacher was saying to students in general, let alone African-American students, that slavery is a personal benefit. I just don't think that's right. You know, you do things right or you do the right thing. And I think doing the right thing, we've had a little discussion on it, and there's no action item on this because it's not implemented yet, but I'd like to hear from other board members and share their concerns or questions or just what they think. Ms. Berenborg.
Sure. Did you get a response, by the way, when you sent that letter?
No.
I did.
Oh, okay.
And
I did not.
I got it last week from Governor Ron DeSantis' office, actually sent it over to the DOE, and they responded, an extremely long response. And of course, it's in defense of a lot of it, but they did listen to the fact about the wording, so I was kind of anxious to share a little bit of this with you. And it did say, and I agree with this, that at the meeting, the new standards for African American history, I don't agree with the unanimous approval, but it says that it marks the first time in Florida's history that African American history standards will be standalone strand. And that's true, because before it would be embedded, and if you got time and you got it done, then it got done. But if you didn't, it didn't. And I was a principal of a pretty much majority African American school in Fort Pierce. And we made sure that that got done because it was our kids' history. But what it says is, it's the first time it's going to be standalone strand, which is great. We got a good start. And with no longer being embedded with American history. So the standards were crafted by Florida educators and scholars, and he went through the whole thing, where it's located, and he refers to the two standards that I brought up, because I brought up two standards. And I just talked about the wording and how you can change just a few words to make it all-inclusive and everybody kind of agreeing to something finally. And he didn't really clarify that part, but he asked me to follow up with a call, and I sure will. So I think that it's a matter of tweaking, and obviously the fact that they put it off, they realize politically it's probably not the right time to do all this, but it's also kind of on the back burner to discuss more, which I'm really happy that that's happening. I think that their defense of some of this stuff, and I'll share this letter with all board members. I'll make sure that we get that shared. But it was interesting that I got a response, and I got a kind of a quick response, which was nice. And obviously, the governor's office is listening to some school board members, and they are forwarding things. So I'm really happy to see that.
Thank you. Any other board member? Mr. Barefoot?
No, I think that I know this, I apologize for this echo. I think the fact that it's been slowed down, as Ms. Berenborg just mentioned, is good. I think perhaps the wording needs to be changed or an emphasis changed. So let's see what the next iteration brings.
Okay. Any other board member? Dr. Moore, anything?
I'll add.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think my previous comments stand, still. I'm generally happy, though, that we're making standards for African American history. I heard a lot of people concerned today that kids aren't getting a thorough education in African American history. It's not really a focus, and they feel a lot of people are moving through life not understanding the horrors of slavery and what happened in America. And I think that this standard is going to help to have a better educated community when we focus specifically on African American history. I think in the end it's going to be good. I understand there's people that are concerned with how this standard is, some of the specific standards in it, obviously the ones brought up today. But there's a lot of misinformation going around, and even one of the speakers today who was talking about it said we need to remove from the standard that slavery is beneficial, and that's not in the standard. I think that the way Nancy Pelosi, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the media ran with this is they just saw a political opportunity to score points and get the community upset. And the truth is that none of the people who wrote this standard want it taught in schools that slavery is beneficial. And no one on this board wants it either. And we're not going to let it be taught in our schools that slavery was a positive thing for anybody. And nobody, I've never met anyone that has that opinion, and I certainly hope I don't.
Thank you, Dr. Posca. Ms. Rosario?
My comments on this issue stay the same as I previously stated from the last time that we had this discussion. But my question is, what's the purpose of this discussion now? Because I didn't hear, it's your item, I didn't hear any other purpose other than let's discuss this again. And the same comments that you made seem to be the same comments you made then. So did I miss something? What was your purpose?
No, I just chose to try to do it at an earlier time because last time it was around 10 o'clock and most people had left.
So you're just repeating the same conversation that we had last time?
I don't know if I repeated it exactly, but
But I'm saying the purpose of putting it on the agenda was because it's just a repeat of last time?
Can I?
That's okay. No, it's just
Talking to
that
the
I
chair,
wanted
please. Thank you
to
for not interrupting.
just put that out there earlier because I know a lot of people left. They didn't get to hear it.
Okay.
They didn't get to discuss it and bring up items.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to know like what the purpose was, because I didn't know if you brought it up because you had another.
No, ma'am. Just citizen input gave them a little bit more time to
Okay,
speak.
that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
I thought you also made the statement that you would like all the board members to make a statement together.
I would,
Thank you.
yes. And I don't know how that could be worded or what we could say, but like what Dr. Posca just said, nobody wants that. So, I mean, I've written a letter, Ms. Berenborg's written a letter, maybe someone could come up with something as a board that we could agree to. I mean, you said something in the last workshop about you would be willing to, look at this and, or
Yeah, I'd
something
be
like
willing
that.
to look at it, but I don't know who, I would love to, if that were the case, it would depend on who's writing it and what's
Right.
being written.
Well,
So
yeah,
rather than my name just
Yeah.
being put down on something without viewing it first,
Right.
but again, it depends on what's in the content of the letter,
Well,
so I
and
don't know what's in the
Right,
content of
and
the
I don't know
letter.
what would be in the content. I would probably ask Dr. Moore to take a look at it, or somebody on his staff that we could look at. I just think it would be powerful if we did it as a board and said this is how we feel. And again, the African American standards as a separate strand, very good move, very, very good move. And I taught American history in 8th grade, so that is something that we could do. But just to make sure that when our children are there and when our teachers are there, we feel comfortable with what is being taught. But I could ask Dr. Moore to take a look at it just in general, and then whether we sign it or not is up to us. That's my feeling. All righty. Our next item, we have approval of consent agenda items as amended. I'd like to Call for a motion
So
to.
moved.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would like an item to be pulled. It's 5E, the minutes that needs to be amended. The minutes 5E need to be amended. So I don't know if you're willing to pull it for action, that's fine, I'll pull it for action. 5E, it's the minutes for 2/28/23.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Point of order.
Yes.
If we're going to go by Robert's rules, we're
Right.
going to go by Robert's rules. Didn't we already have that section of the meeting where,
Yes.
and somebody's here on time, they can
Right.
pull it? Okay.
I'm not going to pull that tonight, Ms.
An
Rosario.
item can be, the item has not been approved or edited appropriate to Robert's rules.
I'm not going to pull that item. That needed to be done at the beginning of the meeting, according to Robert's rules.
A board member can pull it next meeting, though, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
There we go.
Okay,
Sir, I want to defer to the attorney.
okay, we have a question that was not pulled at the beginning of the meeting when we go from consent to action or just pulling an item for correction. If we start that now, then we'd have to do it every time somebody came in.
No, not necessarily. So, sir, the minutes that were pulled were amended, but the minutes that were pulled were not correctly written. And so, according to Robert's Rules 48, 48 Section 4 and 48 Section 15, the minutes have to be, if they're being amended, there has to be a motion to amend something previously adopted. And then there also needs to be, in the actual minutes, there has to be the written in the margin, what was actually changed. And in here, all that was done was a deletion. They deleted the previous minutes and added new minutes. So previously deleted the vote of 3-2. That now no longer exists. If you look at the minutes that were on the agenda right now, is on the agenda right now, it needed to be amended to 4-1. So all of those written margins and the indication of what was actually changed is not accurate.
It's not denied.
Through the chair. You could move to reconsider an item that has been voted upon at the same meeting. But again, pursuant to and again, as I understood it, everybody voted unanimously the last time. So it would be someone who's on the prevailing side. Ms. Rosario is on the prevailing side. If a majority votes to open it up and reconsider, then you can reconsider. If not, it's done.
Yeah, it's just a matter of the correction of the minutes. So the minutes were corrected, they just weren't corrected correctly. That's what I'm saying. You can't delete an item in the minutes without putting a strike through it and then adding the correct information next to it or in the margin. That has to be accurate. Otherwise, we would be voting today on an item that we would have no record prior to what the corrections are being requested.
Okay, I'm not in favor of doing that, but you're saying I should take a board vote to see if we
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
do that? To pull that item that was not pulled at the beginning of the meeting?
It is an item that was already disposed of, and it was.
And it wasn't pulled at the beginning of the meeting?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I have a motion. Would you make a motion, Ms. Rosario?
Sure, I'd love to. I'd like to make a motion to amend something previously adopted. That would be the minutes of 2/28/23.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Mr.
Nay.
Mayor? Okay, nay, okay. Motion fails, okay. But if that needs to be corrected, Dr. Moore, we need to have it in the next meeting as far as the minutes, okay?
Dr. Jones,
Yes.
just a little comment, and the reason why I said nay, because I haven't had time to go back and see what the correction wasn't correct. So I'm not going to vote on something just because I'm being told that it's wrong. I want to know what it is that was wrong so I can vote on it correctly. Thank you.
All right, the next part is the approval of the consent agenda item as amended. I would like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda item as amended.
So moved.
Moved
I'll
by
second.
Dr. Posca, second by Ms. Baraborg. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the consent agenda item as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Nay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Barefoot, what'd you say?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That is approved 4-1, thank you. And we had no consent to action items tonight, so we're good there. Now, action agenda, and I do have some people who I want to make sure I do not miss that as far as the public hearing on the instructional materials, adoption of social studies. Again, this is not a vote, this is just a public hearing. And Mr. Marsh, I think you wanted to speak on this, the instructional materials adoption, and I want to make sure I get everyone I call for. Mr. Marsh? This is on the social studies, instructional materials adoption public hearing. Before we start. Wait, I'm going to hold on just a minute. Should we wait then? I mean, he had this as prior to that. Should we wait until we get into the actual public hearing on the input?
I would.
Okay.
I would suggest that would be
Okay.
the normal course.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, the public hearing for instructional material adoption of social studies 24-25. A list of recommended instructional materials for social studies have been available for public review for at least 20 calendar days. The materials listed are subject to public comment during the public hearing. The Instructional Material Adoption Committee has reviewed the attached adoption materials for consideration beginning with the 23-24 school years. These materials will assist teachers in providing standards-based instruction for the school district of Indian River County students. This list of social studies instructional materials has been brought before the school board during the September 11, 2023 school board workshop. The list will be brought before the school board for approval on October 23rd. Okay, this item deals with the instructional material adoption of social studies for the school year 24-25. Dr. Moore, have you documented that the public hearing was properly advertised in accordance with state statute?
Through the chair, we have.
We now recess this meeting to conduct a public hearing as advertised. The public hearing is now in session. Dr. Moore, are there any written responses to the advertised public hearing to be read at this time? And I have one from Michael Marsh. He can come at this time.
If there is, you have them.
Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. First off, I want to thank the CNI division because even tonight, you have a whole table that allows parents to come here if they have any issues with this curriculum. So let's mark this date because God forbid 90 days from now, this curriculum that gets challenged in social studies. Let's go and look at this timeline. April 6th, the formation of the committee begun. I was proud to serve on that committee. First meeting, April 25th. Second one, May 16th. Third one, June 5th. Then you had August 15th, the 16th, the 17th. Then a notice of public hearing went out. You even had the superintendent's workshop presentation on September 11th. Business meeting tonight. If petitions are received, proceed to the next step. If no petitions are received, proceed to the purchase of approved instructional materials. There's been a whole process. Actually, this process goes all the way until Christmas when they have the public hearing officer that submits the recommendation. But let's talk about the role for a second of the Social Studies Committee. The role here within the School District of Indian River County is to teach standards within the parameters of the law. You got to follow the law. The current publisher submitted content that does both of those things. If at some point laws change and there is a concern about content, I am sure that this school district of Indian River County, through the chair, that our superintendent will make sure the work gets done. We always must follow the law. So once again, I absolutely enjoyed this committee. Unfortunately, some, after they couldn't become chair, left, but I want to thank Mrs. Besora, Mrs. Bieber, Dr. Shafty, of course. And again, I don't know how many people came to the CNI table tonight. I'll do that public record in the morning. But again, we've opened this for all parents. There is absolutely no reason that any of the social studies curriculum ever gets challenged, because the school district of Indian River County has allowed for months upon months to come on in, we want to hear you. Again, a boogeyman that doesn't exist. Work is good, the work will continue to be good, and thanks to C&I division, the system's in place. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh. That is the only person I had on the schedule to talk about that. I want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. The chair concludes that the announced public hearing on September 25th, 2023 has been conducted pursuant to notice, and that ample opportunity to address this issue has been provided by all. The board meeting is reconvened at this time. There is no vote on this because that will be the October 23rd meeting, but I just want to thank Ms. Basura, Curriculum and Instruction. I did this science adoption about 5 years ago, a lot of work. I want to thank all the committee members on there as far as the recommendations. Dr. Hiltz talked about that with National Geographic and so forth. So thank you very much, because there's a lot of time. And thank you to all the parents and community members who assisted in this. Board members, anything else on that?
No, just thank you to all of them. I know how much work that is. I also was on science adoption at the state level, and it took a year. So I appreciate all that work.
Any others? Mr. Barefoot, Ms. Rosario?
Yeah, just to remind parents that if this is the window in which they can provide input to the board.
Sure,
So if you find anything, if you look at any of the materials, if you want, if you have concerns or questions, this is the period within the next 30 days, 28 days, 30 days? 30 days. This is the period within the next 30 days that you would provide that input to us, so that after the 30 days, that's when the board will make our vote, and then obviously within the 30-day window, we would look into your concerns, and then we would move from there. So that's what the public hearing is all about.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, our next agenda item is on our legislative priorities. And I did have a speaker who wanted to speak here, Jennifer Pippin, and then Michael Marsh.
I first wanted to say thank you for putting that legislative agenda together. I know last legislative session it wasn't put together in time, and the speaker at the delegation meeting did a great job in what he was presented with, but this coming from the board was wonderful. One thing about the legislative process is we need to make sure that it's getting implemented in the school district when it becomes law. The past couple legislative sessions, when the laws were approved, they have not been put into policy and procedures here in the school district. Perfect example, House Bill 1069. We still do not have a policy and procedure that's tied to that. It was implemented into law July 1st of this year. So just moving forward with these legislative processes and laws, when they become a law, they need to be put into our policy and procedure, please. And also, we are talking to legislators with Moms for Liberty about amending House Bill 1069, that 313, where the word salad would turn into parents and taxpayers can challenge at the podium. So this way people don't have to go back and reference the beginning of the law for, those challenges. But other than that, again, thank you for your work with the legislative agenda, and look forward to hearing it at the delegation meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pippin. Mr. Marsh?
Good evening. First off, I want to thank, through the chair, the vice chair, for all of her legislative priorities over the years. And I want to highlight just a few items. We'll start off with the first section, school safety and student well-being. Increase safe schools categorical allocation by at least $100 million to narrow the funding gap associated with the mandate to staff one safe school officer per school and ensure sustainable funding. Continue to provide funding for safety infrastructure needs, inclusive of school campus hardening, lightning detection, alert systems, metal detectors, and cameras in school buses and on bus stop arms. Also, increase mental health funding to support expanded mental health services for students and families, including funding to school districts for school-based needs. Thank you, Chair Doc Jones, for that. And also thank you for safety and security, Mr. Seymour, for all he does. Next, educational achievement and innovation. expand VBK to include program options for 3-year-old students. Thank you once again, Doc Jones, for bringing that to the forefront. Recruitment and retention. Provide adequate funding to significantly increase teacher and student staff salaries on a recurring basis and minimize the negative impacts of the current employee retention crisis, including mitigating compression, resulting from recent legislative increases to minimum salary levels. Thank you. Through the chair, Mr. Barefoot, and Vice Chair Barrenborn. Provide incentives and/or funding to facilitate the development of workforce housing, especially for public school personnel. That was thanks to our chair and vice chair. And lastly, in funding, increase the distribution of FEFP funding to districts with net state funding of less than 50% of their gross state and local FEFP funding. Upon request of any district, authorize the Department of Education to distribute up to a maximum of 25% net state FEFP funds on or before August 31st of each year. Through the chair, thank you, Vice Chair Barrenborn. Last, but certainly not least, we here at Mike for Liberty, we're talking to legislators as well. And we don't want parents and taxpayers in that House Bill 1069. We think it's just fine the way it is. And you guys have a great night.
Thank you. All right, this is an action agenda item. A school board review of state legislative priorities previously established and approved was conducted on August 28, 23 at the superintendent's workshop. Minor revisions were made in alignment with school board feedback. The item is for approval of the school board's 23-24 state legislative priorities. I need a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Barrenborg, a second.
Second.
Second, Dr. Posca. Any discussion on the legislative priorities?
Oh, thank you for that hard work putting it all together.
Yes. Ms. Rosario, Dr. Posca, any discussion?
No discussion.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of approval of the school board state legislative priorities signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Anyone opposed? That's 5-0. Thank you very much.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
We need to share this with FSBA. Are you going to be doing that, or do you want me to do that as a liaison? Okay.
Yeah, as you as the liaison, that'd be great. Thank you. All right, the African American History Stand. Yes.
That should be a discussion between all of the board and not just between you and Mrs.
Sharing the
Barrenborg.
information with them?
Yes, all board members should have a discussion
Well, when
about
I
that.
was the advocate last year with state legislative, federal legislative, and the advocacy, I shared that with FSBA. So
No, I understand what you did. What I'm saying now is the request was directly to you. The
Okay.
request should be to all board members. We do not function solely through you. We function as a board corporate.
Dr. Jones?
Yes, go ahead.
I believe I'm the advocate now, right? Advocacy?
Yes.
And the legislative liaison. I have no problem having our secretary send it. I just want somebody to send it to FSBA so they have it on the platform. Okay?
Any discussion on that if we have Ms. Morey send it? Is that okay? Thank you. All righty. We are now on board member matters. And who would like to begin? And any update on your committees would also be welcome. Mr. Barefoot, how are you doing?
Just fine. The only thing I would like to say is that I wish I could be there the last few months, but I'm getting closer to being able to travel. So although I'm not sure I really mean that, given some of the tone and tactics of the last couple of meetings, it is what it is, but I do look forward to being back there in person.
Thank you. Hope you're doing well, and your wife also. Ms. Rosario, anything to share?
No, nothing to share. Thank you.
Okay, just a couple things for me. Dr. Morgan, congratulations on the Cognia recognition. That is huge for someone who's been through accreditation, a lot of work. A statement I love the most is that we are stand for the learners, and I love that. I attended the Hispanic Heritage Days at Fellsmere, and of course got to see a little bit more with their dual language program, and that was wonderful. The Fellsmere Planning and Zoning is continually talking about the growth in Fellsmere area. There is a nonprofit meeting led by Community Foundation this Friday at the Presbyterian Church where all of our nonprofits will be there. So I hope to listen to them a little bit. I'm very glad, Ms. Basura, that we're bringing back the book battle that the teachers and parents wanted so much. And I was in a parade this Saturday in Gifford, led by Margaret Ingram, and it's dealing with a student at Vero Beach High School who has sickle cell. And I just wanted to thank Miss Ingram and everyone at Vero Beach High School for doing that parade, because it was a wonderful, wonderful thing for this young lady. So, yeah, okay, I'm sorry you said no.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Birnborg.
Yeah, so I went to the Treasure Coast Council Local Governments meeting, and it was a really interesting presentation on the Fort Pierce port and all the changes that are going to happen there. And one of the things they're going to put in there is an education center. That's probably going to be down the road, but a place where our kids can go for a field trip to learn about the lagoon and about more to do with the inlet and how it works. The football game was outstanding. Vero Beach just dominated Westwood, and that was my old feeder school. So I probably knew some, that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
but that's when I attended.
Was not that great.
Talking about things I attended.
Not last week.
No, I know. I was out of town last week. I've had some family issues, so I appreciate, Dr. Moore helping me with some of that. As far as trying to get connection and be on Zoom and things like that. So Vero Beach High School girls golf, I went to go to the golf match, and it got canceled at the last second, so I was a little bummed by that, but it was great to see kind of my old team there, but there's different girls. But it was nice because the parents were just wonderful. And then Fellsmere Elementary, I also went to the Hispanic Heritage, and I could only go for a little while. I usually go and sit the whole time and watch everything, but oh my gosh, how does he do it?
I don't know.
All that energy. And I'm referring to Mr. E.
Yes.
Because he was, I thought, almost breakdancing at one point, so it was crazy.
It was great.
It was great. And then just a shout out to Dr. Moore. You presented last week, didn't you, at a state conference?
To all 66 superintendents, yes, ma'am.
What were you presenting about?
The systems that we have in place, how we do continuous improvement, ultimately about the outcomes that we realized over the last year and the processes that we have in place in order to attain those outcomes.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Anyone else? Thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate you. We are now adjourning this meeting. The time is 9:03.